Thank you, mod, as I am muted because I am a. So while you're at it, Snow, thank you for the 14 months. I appreciate it. Tier 1, longest sub. Alright, so, that's me big. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's try this again. Welcome to the broadcast booth. This is the very first episode, and for our very first guest, I am very happy to have the man, the myth, the legend, Scann, the man, the analytics man. How are we doing today, Scann?
I like that, the analytics man.
I'm gonna ask. There's a reason why. It'll come up soon. I promise you.
Gotcha.
So how are you doing today? How's everything been?
Good. Just one of these days, been chilling, working on stuff, and I mean, we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff to talk about here today. I assume, huh?
Very fun stuff. So obviously, we're gonna go through some basic questions, the ones that people ask you when they first see you in stream, when they first come in. Like how long have you been streaming for, and like what got you?
Yeah. So, the streaming thing is only been like a small change of path on this content creation journey. My actual first YouTube videos go back to 2013 when I was in high school. I posted some very, very poorly made YouTube videos because I used to watch guys on YouTube like Vanos Gaming back in the day and people like that who were just people I enjoyed in my free time. So I decided to try to make some videos on my own. And for about 5 years until 2017, I was very on and off. And that's when I started streaming because that was the mode of creating content I was able to do more of. So I started streaming basically nearly daily in like 2017, 2018. I decided to just give it a go and almost like force myself to go at it every day just to see what would happen. And I've been basically doing it ever since full time in 2021, the very beginning of the year. And I've been creating content full time for now 4 years.
So you were at one point like you said, you were streaming every day. You became full time, and then you kind of reduced the amount of streams and stuck more with creating of content. Was there like a reason? Did you sit, ponder, or were you like instantly like, we have to make this change?
Yeah. I think for me, a big part of this whole content creation journey for me has been just self-reflection. And every so often when different things come up, you hear a lot of people in content creation talk about burnout.
Yep.
Where they get burnt out of creating the same thing for a while, or the thing that they once enjoyed, they start losing that enjoyment. And that was with the type of content I was making. When I first went full time in content, I was basically uploading YouTube videos daily. So just quick videos I would make in a couple hours. I tried to stream every day for like 3 hours. So it was like every day, hop on, 3 hours, 4 hours of making a video and editing, 3 hours, 4 hours of streaming every single day. And at the end of MLB 22, so around November 2022, I had my first real case of being burnt out, where that motivation and the previous enjoyment was just kind of gone. The motivation was just entirely nowhere. I couldn't get up and do the same things I was doing, and I had to really reflect why. And I eventually came to the line that it is because I was just forcing myself to do things every day and not being creative in the way that I know I wanted to be. I always wanted to make videos that were like fun, entertaining videos rather than hop on and make purely information videos to help people out. And I never was able to do that with how I made content back then. So then it took me realizing, okay, if I want to do this, I got to try it. So I focused all my efforts to learning the craft of YouTube and making good videos and how the platform works. And through that has becoming my focus rather than the Twitch streaming, which it had been for the like last 6 years before that point.
So I get burnout from a perspective. I mean, I feel like everyone has been there at one point. Sometimes it hits other people harder than others, depending on the aspect, what's been going on. how that journey has been, and with MLB the show being primarily everyone's looking for that same style of video, that debut theme teams. Once those came out, those became, it just became so standard. So if you got people who work jobs, you got people who have other things outside of streaming, that 3 o'clock time jobs, and everyone's like, okay, I have to hurry and get this done, because if I don't get it on YouTube on the same day, I'm not going to get the views that I'm looking.
Yeah. That is a big part of that style of content. Basically, when the premise of the video is, hey, there's this new thing added to the game. I'm going to show off said new thing. So the interest in the video is the new shiny thing that came out today. So for those type of creators, they feel that need to like drop that right away while the interest in that new thing is a thing. And I would do that sometimes. So I would make a lot of tips videos and then make the occasional like, hey, let me debut a card because this is a fun card. But they never did well because I basically taught YouTube that like, hey, the people who watch my videos want information. They want to learn. So when I post a video like that, which is more so about, hey, let's highlight this new card or highlight this thing, it never really did well because my audience on YouTube wasn't built for that. They never wanted to watch those videos. So part of that change for me was realizing, okay, I want to try to build up an audience of people who want to watch me for this style of content, which made me realize, okay, I got to spend some time doing this. I got to really get creative. I really learned to edit to a higher level than I was able to before. And for me, like, honestly, I still don't even like to do that style of content just because I don't enjoy making it. But there is always a place for that type of content. It basically exists everywhere, not even just in the world of MLB The Show. There's a new shiny thing in this game because so many games nowadays are live content, new things come out, and people like to highlight the new shiny thing.
So the tips, the tricks, that style of video, that's where I called you at one point, and in the introduction of this stream, is Scann the man, the analytics man. MLB The Show 23. One of the biggest problems that we had, which still continues on to this day, is hitting. I remember the live stream. You were playing ranked. You put on a live stream, you're like, you know what? I'm going to calculate the launch angle and the speed and see what the probability was and predictability of what would happen in an actual MLB game. And you're like, I'm in a ranked game. I'm going to be positive a lot. This dude's going to get pissed off at me eventually. Like, I thought it was so different because it was different, and that's what everyone has their quirks, niches in the MLB The Show community. You deep digging into the analytics side, especially through a gameplay perspective, what made you come up with that?
That's a good question. I think back then it was around that time of MLB 22 where people were starting to like common talk was just frustration at hitting. It's honestly been a thing for like 6 years now where people are like not happy with the state of hitting no matter what happens. So it's like it's a buzzword in the community saying like, oh, hitting sucks or hitting whatever. It's a polarizing topic. And that was around the time where I started to try to get more creative. So one day I was sitting there thinking of ideas. And I remember running into watching a real life baseball game and seeing that they had like the StatCast probabilities for certain hits of certain launch angles and where the ball lands in the field. Like, what was the average of that being a hit? And I was like, wait, what if we try to mess around this in MLB The Show? Like, I know it's something no one else has ever done. I definitely, honestly, back then, I wasn't really an MLB analytics nerd at all, but I've kind of done that bit by bit over the last few years, learning more about MLB analytics. And it tied perfectly with me because if anyone watched me and my MLB The Show content, it was all just deep diving things on the game that nobody ever wanted to do. So it was just an idea that kind of spurred that day entirely where I was like, oh, this seems like a fun idea for like a fun video to try that might tie like a fun gameplay to the tips content I was making back then, kind of this analytics stuff. So it was just one of those things that just happened spur of the moment, basically. I don't think I put much thought into it whatsoever.
Dude, it was honestly like fun to watch because especially 23 was the absolute worst. You're talking to someone who started playing fully in 22. I didn't get the joy of 21 like everyone else has. 21, I kind of dipped my toe in. I'm like, okay, I'm getting these cards. I'm like, okay, I want this card. How do I, like, I wasn't researching any of this. You know, I was
Yeah.
on a different side of things at the time. Um, it's just I was like, you know, like your every hit that you were getting was like, yeah, like it's either this was gonna happen or this was gonna happen. So there was still the probability that the fluke hits in MLB was fluke hits. In real life, the blasts were the
Mm.
blasts. You know, so it was really like, you know, I always like watching people of just the individual. You're definitely like people talk to you like, oh, how would be the streamer? It's like one of the first names that pops up is you, because I'm like, he does things differently because and it makes it entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I appreciate that, and it's one of those things that, in terms of just like making content, it's. I mean, when I was first getting into this whole thing, it's never something I thought about. It's just kind of something that happened. You just kind of keep making videos, and you start making things you really enjoy, and you start learning a lot more about yourself through stuff like this. Like when I first played MLB The Show in MLB 18, well, it wasn't my first MLB The Show, but when I first got back into it, I I would have never thought I would just be like a nerd on the game, like knowing the ins and outs of all those details. Never once would have thought that was going to happen. But as time went on, you know, you just kind of, and when you start experimenting with more things or finding things that are interesting, you kind of learn a lot more about yourself through that. And that, I think that just something I've kind of stumbled upon ever since getting going a few years ago.
So if people follow you on Twitter, they'll also see that you are interested in games such as Destiny and during the off
Yeah.
season as well as Fortnite. Been making videos since 2013. Was MLB The Show ever part of your streaming plan, ever part of the content plan, or did you think you were going to be doing something completely different?
I'll be honest, I had no idea what was gonna happen, especially MLB The Show was not in the plan. So this is a little fun story that's worth diving into that kind of is perfectly hits the subject on the head here. When I was first streaming back in 2017, it was literally just playing Fortnite. Whatever game I would be playing with my friends at that time. Back then I would go live and I'd say, you know what, why not throw up a stream? You never know what happens. I was just doing it to do it. And I used to only play battle royale games around then. So
Yep.
technically, I think my first streams I was getting into was CS:GO, and then
Interesting.
that lasted about a couple months. And then I eventually moved on to PUBG because that was the next game I was playing. And if you remember back in the Twitch days, PUBG was like the
PUBG
game to be
COVID
streamed
days.
for a few years.
VR took over the world. I'd say from 2017. I mean, it's
Yep.
still going strong now, but I think once games like CS:GO and Valorant and Rocket League really took off, I think we're seeing that mix. But once
Yeah.
you bring up pro players, then it's like, ooh, VR, let me play. But
Yeah, I mean, battle royales they were trendy back then. You had H1Z1, which I didn't play. I hated that game. But I played PUBG.
yep,
PUBG I streamed for like half a year, and then Fortnite took over everything, and that was like the game I played the most from like 2017 to 2018, and I played it a metric ton. And it took me like over like I think it took like a year and a half to even get Twitch affiliate through streaming all that time. Which for a lot of like smaller creators, MLB The Show, you might not know that like that took me so long to do back then, which doesn't happen all the time, even in our community as it's getting bigger. It was a grind for me back then, and I eventually got it. And after I guess saving up bits and bits of money over time, I eventually got a PS4, and I got MLB The Show 16, and I played a little bit of MLB 16 and 17. I think I made a couple YouTube videos of playing Road to the Show on MLB 16, but never like played it consistently. I had just kept on playing in my free time. Never knew anyone even made much content on the game or especially streamed it. In MLB 18, one day I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna stream the game. Sounds like a fun thing to mess around with and do. And I'm playing Diamond Dynasty at like the worst skill level ever. And just I think about an hour into the stream, I get rated by Daddy Dimmu TV back
Oh
then
crap!
with about 200 viewers. I think was the number he had. And that was like, there was a moment that clicked there. I'm like, wait, first of all, people watch MLB The Show on Twitch?
Yeah.
Didn't even know that was a thing. Had no idea. And a few people got to know me just through that stream and that raid. There's some people who are still in my community today who were part of that original Dimmu raid in MLB 18.
That's
And that's when I kind of realized, like, wait, there are people who play this. Like, that's so cool. So that's when it put in my head, like, okay, this might be a fun thing to come back to. So I would very infrequently stream MLB The Show heading into MLB 19. And through that time, I met a few people in the community. There was one kid who, his name is Caleb. He was someone who was in the community back in the day. Got into a lot of drama back then, but he's grown beyond that.
Oh,
he was
thank
one of
God.
the first people I met. And if any of you know De Holy Grail in your Twitch directory, he was probably like the first or second person I met. And he was just a dude who was streaming in college for the fun of it. And he was getting into it more and wanted to basically get to know more people who streamed. And through 2019, like the beginning part of 2019, I didn't stream much of the game. I had my PS4 I had was a used one. It wouldn't keep the game running consistently, so it would crash all the time. So I just played Fortnite still. And he's like, bro, just stream MLB The Show. Just do it. Just go for it. I feel like you'll like doing it. And he was basically pressuring me every time I'd go live to stream it. And I'm like, you know, I'll get a new PS4 that works right. I'll give it a go. And the general beginning period, I think like 1 or 2 months into MLB 19, I started streaming it like every day. And basically ever since, it's history. It all started from just him peer pressuring me to stream the game all the time. It's like this whole, like, the people talk about like the butterfly effect where one thing happens and it leads to another thing and another.
Yeah.
The Dimmu raid led to me meeting the Holy Grail, which led to him selfishly peer pressuring me. He's told me this, by the way, that he was like selfish and wanted to know more people. He's like, I'm gonna tell this dude to stream. He's like a cool guy. So I started streaming it more because of him, which led to me, you know, everything, becoming a full-time creator because of doing MLB The Show stuff. And today. So it was never part of my original plans. It just kind of became a thing in MLB 19 when I decided to play the game a bit more and got peer pressure into doing it more.
So a few stories, because it's funny that you mentioned, having to use PS, getting it down with the show 2016. We aren't even in 20. People are wishing though already. So funny enough, when I got back at MLB The Show, granted that's for like Road to the Show, because I had a 360. 2K lost its right to MLB. So the last one was 13. They had a refurbished white PS4 because of Destiny. And I had that for a while. Then that ended up dying. Then I got another PlayStation for a few months later. Be like, ooh, PS5, I'm in line. You also mentioned, the GOAT, one of the GOATs, Daddy Dimmu. My first ever freeze off was at his stadium. And I had the automatic shutdown for like my PlayStation. So I had to go into my settings, fix all that. I went back in hours later. Dude's like, really? I'm like, dude, I just got back from the ground. I didn't even see your message. Like, he left when the first ever freeze off at his stadium, tweeted out to him. It was a great moment. And what's funny is that, I feel like we all need that one person that's kind of like you don't know if you need that one person just like, do it. So I'm glad that you found someone who did. And what's funny is that you answered a question without me having to ask it, because one of them is like, do you remember when you like realized that you made it, and you knew it was gonna like this was gonna be like a sure thing?
That is actually a good question. Because I'll be honest, when I went full time, I kind of say it a bit nowadays. I was stupid in how I did it. I basically in 2020, I had built up streaming enough where I got around like 50 average viewers. And back then, it was a completely different time. Like there were less people streaming it all the time,
Yeah,
smaller directory, different time. And I irrationally felt, hey, I'm doing all right with this. If I had more time, I could, I think I could make enough money to do this full time. I did not go rational at all. Like most people, they kind of still do it as a hobby until they
yeah.
make full time money and then they say, hey, I'm going to do it. So for me, I never really felt secure for like the longest time. It took me
I feel like that's a safe route,
probably
though.
until 2023 to feel like, okay, this is something that I'm meant to do. And it took a while. If we talked about it a bit before when I made that switch from focusing on streaming all the time
Yep.
to doing YouTube. When I was just streaming all the time, financially, I was making enough to pay bills and only that. And it was perfect for what I was going for, but I never felt secure because when you're making content the way it was, you have some really solid peaks, and then when the game slows down, you're in the off season, it really slows down. And I had no chance to save up anything. So that security really started to come in the beginning of 2023 when I actually had YouTube videos starting to hit the algorithm after trying to make these videos for
Yep.
months. There was one video I made that I titled Jazz Chisholm Builds My Team. And the concept was I went through Jazz Chisholm posts and interviews and tried to build a team of players that he said he enjoyed or was correlated to. That video got like, I think it was like 20,000 views in like the first couple days. And I was like, okay, I think I'm building something that can work. And that was the first time, like, okay, I think this is actually becoming the thing I wanted to be, because that's what I've wanted it to be. I haven't done it for the financials, but I've wanted to build something that I felt like was actually reaching and impacting people on YouTube. And that was actually doing it. So that was probably the first time where it hit me that, like, I'm really in this content creator thing. I'm doing this. We're in the thick of it. And we're all in at this point.
So you bring up the fact that you didn't feel secure, which I honestly think is a good thing. Never feel safe where you are because you never know what might happen. People,
Mm-hmm.
like people haven't necessarily asked me, but it's like I've even told people, like, even if I were to make partner or make enough money where I feel like I could financially be fine with streaming, I'm like, I'd probably still hold down a part-time job, if anything, tax returns and
Mm-hmm.
that, just so that way, I don't, that so I'm no longer secure. So I feel,
Yeah.
um you bring up back then, doing things differently. I feel we kind of been in that same boat. Like when I first started, it was just streams, tweeting out that I was streaming. It was never really, the content behind it. Like that, I just want to be able to game, and that's it. But not everybody can do that. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you ever felt that way, or if you're just like, because of the fact that you've watched YouTube videos in the past, you already kind of felt the need to having to streaming anchor.
Yeah. So it was really just a long process of testing different things. There was a point where I realized in 2020 that if I wanted to grow my stream, I needed to create content outside of streaming. And you learn for basically like a large majority of people who make it as streamers, they're creating content elsewhere because that's just what you got to do. People don't go on Twitch usually to find new streamers. They find the people that they already watch and continue to watch them. Maybe you have cases of people browse in game directories and find creators that they watch. So that was something that had hit me kind of early on. I think I learned that about like 2020 in that ballpark when it really hit me, and I started posting TikToks after my dude Graceful Swan was blowing up on there for that first year, and then I was posting on YouTube, starting to get the tips videos and stuff, and kind of building an audience through that. So early on, I realized that, but I think what it comes down to, I want to circle back to what you said about the complacency thing, where people get comfortable with where they're at. I think one thing that gets lost in this whole content creation stuff is that people, like so many people, have the goal of just doing it full time. Their goal is to just make enough money to do this, or they get focused on the financial side of it, and they do everything in this content to make money. Like I've talked to numerous creators where they almost don't love what they're doing because they kind of have to keep doing things to sustain themselves for the bills, or to keep going, to even just keep doing it full time. And in response to that, and like the complacency or getting comfortable with what you're doing, I always recommend to people just have fun with it. Make your number one priority all the time that you're enjoying creating content, and make sure what you're always doing is creating content that you enjoy, whether that is streaming, or streaming a certain way, or making videos like you do. Make sure that always stays, because it could get, even if you're making content full time, if you're not enjoying making the content, it's never worth it. And let those things come in time. You know, if you put enough hard work and you want things enough, then just keep working at it, and don't try to force yourself to do things that just get the views or just get the money. Make sure you do it for the enjoyment of it, because I find with most creators I talk to behind the scenes, they kind of reach this point all the time where they do this one thing, they kind of force themselves to do it because it's what got the views and what grew them, and they're like, you know, I don't love this, and it kind of shows in the content they're making. You can usually tell when people are kind of burnt out. They're getting tired of doing this because they're not enjoying it. And that was the source of me getting burnt out, because I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I thought I was, because I want to be a full-time content creator. That was my goal. I didn't enjoy what I was creating to be a full-time content creator. So I had to make that shift, and I've been lucky to be in a position where I could do it financially and
Yeah.
timing wise. So to everyone, I guess general advice here is just always remember to like enjoy what you're making, because like that is like a very pivotal part of me in my journey, especially right now.
You see, that's what's with me. It's like I want to be able to, like, you know, do what I enjoy, like, you know, because you don't know what audience you're gonna reach. They may or may not enjoy it. You know, it's like I'm gonna circle back to talking about how people kind of put out the same content. Sometimes I feel like I have to bite that bullet and do similar content, but I do try branching out and doing different things. Like one of the things that popped into the top of my head, it was MLB The Show. It was 22, and there talks about the World Baseball Classic was going on. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna make Team USA live series only, like, you know, because nobody's doing this style. Have you? I guess what I'm trying to say, have there been times when you were doing your own thing and you almost bit that bullet of drifting away from what you like doing, or what you had to do?
Oh, that has happened honestly plenty of times. And even when I make content right now the way that I like to, there are some like general, not like that I have to do it, but there are some general times where I'm like, you know, I want, like, even if it's not the most exciting subject to me, I should do this because I know this could be a broad video that could reach a new audience. And I will say with that, it definitely, the ideas of a video or something like that, sometimes if the idea itself is something that motivates you the most and maybe just isn't the most fun, and it's something I've started to do, then I've tried to come up with creative ways to deliver that idea. So like example, last year I've been saying for a while I wanted to start doing some more Road to the Show content. I knew it was something people wanted to see, and I think would have done well for my audience. I just had never the personal motivation to sit down and play it. So I spent a lot of time trying to like put together an idea of like what would be a fun way to put together a Road to the Show video or to play Road to the Show so I could still have fun with it and put my own twist on it. And for that, that was playing an entire Road to the Show in one video and playing a whole bunch of it, making it like a half an hour to an hour long video. It's a format that some other people have done that have worked, and I was like, you know, this sounds like a lot of fun. That's something that sounds fun. So I find with a lot of those ideas where you're gonna encounter a lot of things where you learn like, hey, this video does well with my audience. Sometimes you might want to mess with that idea and just put a different twist on it that could make it fun for you. And that's a lesson I've learned. And that could be in just slightly tuning the idea. It could be in how you deliver the video. I mean, I've made like at this point probably like tens to nearly 100 tier list videos on
those.
recommending cards. And as time went on, I tried to keep on experimenting with how I deliver those videos or how I'd format them because I knew people liked them. So I guess long this is a long answer to your question. Yes, I totally have, and I think a lot of people have. And it just comes down to recognizing that yes, you might feel like you need to do this video, but make sure you understand like why you feel like you need to do it. Like, do you feel like you need to do it because you want to really keep growing that core audience? Do you want to try to reach a new audience? Make sure everything is with a calculated reason. Because I find that people will do things just because they feel like they need to when they don't actually have to. Make sure you like reflect and understand why you're doing something if you are going to do it. And I feel like that at least helps justify it.
I believe it definitely does. You know, you brought it up. Talking points, cards, you know, Road to the Show, that's come. So many different modes in MLB The Show have come a long way from what they were. Like way back when, like, you know, I was playing MLB The Show 2007 on PSP. Yep. Home Run Derby wasn't the way the Home Run Derby is now, where you got like the different extra bonus points. Road to the Show, you're stacking up your player like within a first couple of months.
Yep.
I think one of the biggest things that games have issues with, and I wouldn't necessarily, it's not necessarily not only the developers, but the players within themselves, is the casual versus competitor debate, because competitive players get upset that they're doing too much of the casuals. Casuals are getting upset because they're doing too much for the competitive. And then with MLB The Show, there's a third category. Well, there's a subcategory under the casual play. I call myself casual competitive. I play about a few times a week, stream it a few times a week. I play ranked because I like the competitive side of it. So that's why I call myself a casual competitive. You know, relearning the power creep after, you know, not having it for 2 years in a row is definitely a learning curve. I'm going for the casual, and this is for Diamond Dynasty. This is gonna be a hot topic. I hope you're ready for this.
I'm ready. I love it.
The casual offline fans, the ones that don't touch ranked, BR, or events. I feel for them in a way, but at the same time, Diamond Dynasty kind of really caters primarily to the whole aspect of the online players, because in my opinion that's where you get the most use and possibly satisfaction out of the cards you use. Whereas sure, it gets upsetting and annoying that all you have is showdowns. Recently added Diamond Quest, which has caused a lot, is starting to, especially this egg hunt one, has started like causing a lot of people to be like say that like the rewards aren't necessarily easy to get, not obtainable. And I specifically tried going higher difficulty, win, and still luck out on those cards. You also got Conquest. Do you feel that MLB The Show could integrate something online with DD to go for the casual offline players?
That's an interesting question. I feel like here's the thing with a lot of those, I guess we'll call them casual offline players, the folks who just solely play offline in Diamond Dynasty, or at least a majority of their playtime. I think those are people who honestly transition well from like the other modes like franchise, because that's like their comfort. A lot of people are almost like they're either very insecure about playing online. That's something I run into a lot. We're just not comfortable playing online. Or on the other side of things, they just maybe they play other games where they play online often, or they just don't like the player versus player aspect. They just like a more relaxed or like create their own experience. So, long story short, I don't know if there's anything they can do in terms of adding online modes that could ease those people in more. Just because, but just like we all are, we all find ways that we enjoy the game. So we typically want to just stick to the things that we enjoy. So, I guess to answer what I think your question is, I don't know if there's much there they can do. And in terms of those players, I mean, from at least from what I've heard of this year, I felt like many of them are pretty happy with Diamond Quest, for example, being an
Yep.
addition to the game. A lot of them like that as an addition because it's something that I think they've been wanting for a while, some
Yeah.
somewhat rewarding repetitive mode that they can kind of keep playing over and over again that has sometimes like a different experience many of the times that you play it. And I think in general, the game could probably keep using more things like that. Not even just for the offline players, but the online players too. Just some more of like a repeated experience that they can kind of keep on, like something that adds that replayable value. I mean, we kind of get it. If you're ranked, you get a new ranked season every month. If you play BR, you can keep playing BR runs, and there are always new events. But those offline players hadn't had that really before Diamond Quest. So for me, this is gonna be like this might be an interesting take in comparison to many people, but no matter what with feedback and MLB the Show, there's never one right answer. There's
I
ever
can
gonna
agree.
be, no matter what happens, whatever change they make for one type of player is gonna drastically change it for some other type of player. And I think the thing that I guess people in general forget with MLB the Show is that there are so many people that play the game differently, and not everything is just a single, hey, this thing will make everyone happy. There's always going to be some counter to what they do. I mean, best example, if you remember last year, people were starting to get tired of sets in seasons. That
I
was
love that.
a general consensus view from a lot of people, and even from the people who enjoyed it and were optimistic about it. Cough, cough, me. I think a lot of us got to the point where we were like, it'd probably be good to bring it back because they weren't able to execute it in the way that we thought. So they brought back the power creep. And obviously, with the power creep, you've still seen issues in the content in a lot of people's eyes. A lot of people still not happy with things. And these are things that have happened all the way back to MLB 22 when we had the power creep again. So basically, not like, I guess the long-winded answer here is like, I don't even know what the best solution to these things are. And SCS, a lot of times, from my understanding, makes the best decision based on the statistics that they put together.
Yep.
Like they have numbers like, hey, this amount of people play ranked or this mode or
Yep.
whatever. This amount of people get to this rating. So they're like almost like risk management and making these decisions, saying like, okay, this might make this type of player happy, but it might make this player not very happy. And every decision has that. So in terms of all
Yep.
these things, everything is a decision of like how many people will be happy and will more people have an improved experience by this change than not. And I'm pretty sure it's how they're going to be judging a lot of things. So I think one thing I would at least recommend to people is to at least try to at least maybe think about with some changes, like, there might be other people who really enjoy this change. It might not be me, and that's okay. This thing
Yep.
isn't meant for me. And in that case, of the offline player, there would be a lot of people that would be complaining if they add something for offline or something the easy experience for offline to online players. A lot of people would be like, what's the point of that? I'm never touching that. I'm
Yeah.
never doing that. And I guess, yeah, I guess it's probably the best answer I could give. That kind of diverted to another conversation.
No, but it
But
helped lead to
I
another conversation.
think we kind of got to the end point anyway.
You're kind of picking my brain without like trying to pick my brain, which is great because you bring up sets and seasons.
Yeah.
I will be completely honest with you. The way they executed sets and season in MLB 23.
Yeah.
Yep, 23. You know, granted, 90. They say 99 overall drop, but if you really want me to be honest with you, I think we had a power creep back then that nobody realized. They just slapped a 99 on the card. So we
There's
saw
a power
those.
creep, yes.
So when there was that
Absolutely.
when there was that early 99s with the charisma cards through Team Affinity, everyone was talking about, well, why is he only in 97? Why is he in 95? Where are the for like the events, BRs? Yep. And I'm like, we're going like they slapped 99s on so many people that weren't a true 99 that they have to combat it with weird looking 95s and 97s. Yep. Like I said, I enjoyed the sets in season. I will tell you that I enjoy sets over vouchers. Because with vouchers, the style of which the content is coming out in reminds me a lot of 22. And I feel like with 22, you really had to sit down and play that game 8 hours a day to be able to complete any form of content that was dropped, to get a voucher, to, yes, get good cards, thankfully. But if you're someone who's new and doesn't understand that, you know, you're like, oh, I'm not going to use this card, I'm going to sell it, then you realize you need that card. Or you think you might be safe with the amount of cards that you have with before the first drop comes. Scott Rowland, for example, I thought, you know, I was good. I'm like, okay, I have to do at least one of their US Conquest maps to be able to get Roki, I believe. And then, like, John Don, that's a storyline set down, that's no problem. Once you realize you need everything else in between, you're kind of there like, holy crap, like, I get it. It's still early on in the game, but with market manipulation and pack odds, anything you could possibly think of to, like, it's reminding me, the content structure is reminding me a whole lot of 22, and it kind of it has me concerned.
I'll counter you with this, because one point that you mentioned there was that you felt like you have to like do everything to get those collections and to get those cards. And I will counter and say, even with sets and seasons, it was a similar thing where you had to complete a lot of the other programs to get enough cards to get the collections, because it gave you what they would have like 5 to 10 cards in those other programs that were a large chunk of the cards you would collect for that set in the season. And one thing with MLBTheShow, I guess there's 2 things here, is that you kind of touched on it. The best of the best cards are always going to be hard to get right away. It's always going to, and they intend it to be that way. Yep. And they even like said it with like the vouchers, for example, like things get easier over time, and you already are starting to bit by bit. And I think they intentionally make things hard, especially right away.
Yep.
For the people who do play the game all the time, so they feel rewarded for their time. If they're playing it daily, if they're completing all the things, then they're able to get a little bit of a head start towards that very good card. But you'll notice this with Roland, which is kind of a similar parallel to MLB 22 with that George Brett collection. As time goes on, like so many people, even the people who play very casually, are just going to keep on building up an inventory of those cards passively by playing the game. Like, it's very, very passive. So their goal, I think, is to make it so things are intentionally difficult and a lot of work to start, and then get way, way easier over time. And I think this is the grand point of all of this. A lot of us who play the game pretty regularly feel like we need to get those cards right away.
Yeah.
And especially sets and seasons almost taught us this, because with all the cards being 99s and there being really, really good 99s, people felt like they were able to get those cards reasonably, and that they just should get them because they got to get all these cards. And when you play the game more, you start to feel like you need everything. You have that FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I gotta get that card.
Because when you're like, you know, like, I've finally hit Division Series, first time ever, you know, it's just, you know, all the top players, again, feeling rewarded for grinding, absolutely. I understand your take on that. I absolutely, you know, agree. Maybe it's that I just don't like not being prepared, for lack of a better term, so instead of feeling like I'm safe, but like, I agree with you. Yes, there are other programs and stuff with the sets and seasons that we have to get done. You know, I like, you brought up great points I can easily agree with. I just, it's like I said, content like that.
I think I do get what you're saying. I think what you were saying, which you kind of just touched on there, is what you didn't like about the Scott Rowland collection, for example, is that you couldn't prepare much beforehand. So like in the previous format, you just knew you had to collect all the cards in that set or the season. So you were just doing that passively anyway. So the collector would come out and you're like, okay, I'm like prep, good to go. So you didn't like how when that came out, it was just kind of like a surprise. It was like, oh, you know, I need this amount of this series. It's expensive. I couldn't prepare because some of these cards are very expensive now. So that I get. That I definitely relate to. Because, you know, it threw me off guard.
I was like, oh, I'm like 2 out of like 18.
Yeah.
And one of them,
it threw me off. I didn't expect them to do it like that. I expected them to make it pretty lenient to get him too, because it's like, it's been that way. I don't know if you remember MLB 22.
I don't remember. I know. I think who was Brett?
Yeah, George Brett was the first collection. I think there was George Brett, and then there was later on. I think you might have gotten I think a Brian Wilson card with him as well for like. I think it was like along the way. If you got like half the vouchers, you would get Brian Wilson or something like that. And I remember back then, back then, this is MLB 22, I was playing it all the time. Yeah. But I remember feeling like I needed to buy everything. And then I was like, yeah, I'm over prepared. I'm good. They made it easy. But now with 25, we have this collection. And I'm like, you know, I was over prepared for this. I felt like it was going to be a lot more. They're going to be nice with it. And they chose violence. They made it so right away. You gotta dish out stubs.
That's what I was worried, because, you know, this, especially when I saw like the whole Spotlight series kind of reflected on what you just said. It's that, but we got that. Unfortunately, we got that paywall back. Whether or not they like me saying that or not, it's a different story.
It was a paywall.
There's a paywall, and I'm a big, you know, like, you know, I've paid before, but yet again, when Euclid was first, right? Because it's I saw his last game. He just, you know, it wasn't like I wasn't worried about discovery. It was just like Euclid. Yes. Yeah. But and you know, like, so I got that done. But no, 22 was definitely memorable. At least 2 players. I would be lying if I told you I remember the ones. I remember McCutcheon being good. I remember I missed the George. Yeah. The other George Bretts have not. Granted, I get it. This George Brett we have now, it's Team Affinity. He's an 85. I get it. He's not going to be a 99 same. But I felt like we haven't gotten as.
Yeah, one thing that happened then, which I think some people forget about, is that it's a lot like Scott Rowland right now, where that George Brett was also it was a very solid, like, on paper George Brett card, but it's also a 99 in a time of the game where there aren't many 99s.
Yes.
So a lot of times players like that play better than expected than like some of their normal cards, and they're very intentional with who they choose for things like that, because they're typically weaker hitters. But in a time where there aren't many 99s, ooh, that card is going to be juicy. And George Brett was the perfect case of that. And George Brett, if you remember in MLB 21, he had gotten a 99 that was also pretty good in the last Team Affinity drop. But there were so many great cards in that Team Affinity, like a Frank Thomas.
Yep. They're
that
just like,
outmatch that card. So when you give him that chance in the spotlight, then the card looks great. And that is exactly what feeds into the FOMO. You see that one of the few 99s, it makes you feel like you have to get the card.
yep.
And that's actually something that when I changed up my content and stuff, and I intentionally tried to tell myself to take a small step back from the game, because I felt like there were so many times I would play it just to keep up with things. So I felt like I had to get everything. And one thing I've learned, which I think a lot of people who play DD especially could probably at least use out of it, is like, try to take a small step back, because the game has you with FOMO. The
Oh,
game
yeah.
wants you to feel like you have to get every card right away. It's what gets you to keep playing all the time. It's what gets you to dish out money for stubs to get the cards right away. They want you to feel like you need this card right away. And Scott Rowland is already showing as a perfect example. It already got multiple hundred thousands of stubs cheaper because we got all these spotlight cards this week that you could basically just get the spotlight card just by playing through all the programs. So that cut out a lot of stubs. And they do this all the time, where they'll come out with a card and it'll be expensive and tough to get for that first week. And just 1 week later, if you were just patient and didn't feel like, oh, I have to get this card today and sell my soul to get it right now, you could have gotten them without spending like a large chunk of stubs. And it's going to keep going that way bit by bit. So at first, I was like, wow, I wasn't prepped for this collection. I can't believe how tough they made this. Kind of insane they did it. But as long as they, with things like this, and this goes with everything, with chase pack players, with players who are tougher to get, like the collection cards, as long as they make an effort to continue to make it easier for anyone to get over time, then I'm always cool with it being tough to get at first. Because I've started to get okay with not getting cards right away. And I've tried to take a step back and not let the FOMO beat me. Even though sometimes it does. Like, I got Scott Rowland like 6 days after it came out.
I mean, it's like you just watch people just like... Because I've always felt over the years there's always been either similar positions or newer positions that have always had that struggle. Like, I remember for the longest, like for MLB 22, one of the biggest weak points I thought MLBTheShow 22 was catchers. I thought, sure, you had Napoli. Everybody liked Napoli. I was one of the rare few where it's like I couldn't get his swing down. I'm not always about the stats. If I feel like I can't swing well with this card, I'm just swinging, I'm missing, I'm pulling it, I'm hitting it the way it shouldn't be going, I'll replace it out for at least common card. Like 22, I had a catcher cap. I took advantage of the cap. I made a Jason Varitek. He did great.
Yeah, I think people get so caught up in just attributes or the new shiny card. And like, I think this is why the power creep is nice, because you'll find those players that you just really enjoy and you'll just keep them in forever. Like right now, for example, live series Ketel Marte, yes, he's still on paper a very good card as a second baseman, but that man has been an immovable force. Like, I'm hitting in cleanup with a lineup with Scott Rowland, Carlos Beltran, Gil Hodges, and he's hitting right after them. Because even with his like 74 contact versus righties at parallel 5, I just have his swing down, even on the higher difficulties, and he's just an automatic hit, so I can't take him out. So I think the beauty of why people didn't love sets and why people kind of like this, because you can kind of keep using cards like that, and you could find those cards that you like. And even if it's a card, like right now, for example, I could probably mess around and still use that Dalton Rushing card and have fun with him at catcher. Because like, he was a very fun card at the beginning. I still did well with him. I just eventually tried other guys. I could go back and use that card if I want to. And especially most people who play the game, like, you don't even really need to get nitpicky if you're playing on Legend or Go difficulty, in my opinion. You don't need to be that nitpicky even on Hall of Fame when selecting players for your team. If you have a player you're good with, no matter the attributes, keep using them.
Keep using them. Dalton, a lot, like, granted, I've been seeing like a lot of what people have been complaining card is his inability to block. But what's funny is that I hit better with him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It happens that way. That's something that gets almost overlooked. I think the best example of this is Pete Crow Armstrong this year. Like, I didn't mess with him much because I got some better cards on my team right away, so I wasn't using
Yep.
a gold in my outfield much. But live series Pete Crow Armstrong took the game by storm to start off the year. He was like most people's go-to center fielder. He had the defense and speed, of course, but his hitting attributes weren't great, but people loved his swing.
Yeah.
His swing made his card feel like he was playing above the attributes because he would just simply connect with the ball more because people just liked his swing more. And people used him for a while. Now there's a 90 overall PCA that again doesn't have great hitting, but a lot of people are actually still using just because they love his swing.
Swing.
And sometimes you're just gonna have a feel with a card, no matter what the attributes are, and it is entirely okay to stick with them, which is exactly why revolving back to the FOMO thing. You know, the game tries to teach you that you need to get all the new cards. And you got to get the
Yep.
next best card because it's on paper better. But the beauty of the game is you don't have to get it, and that's something I've been trying to teach myself. Like, I don't have to get this card right away. I've been liking this card a lot. Why would I ever need to replace him? Let me just keep using them, and why rush to get that card? And I
Because
find
it's
for
shiny
me,
Scann.
I find for me, I actually start to enjoy the mode when I feel like I go for cards because I want them
Yeah.
and not that I feel like I have to get them. And that's like the whole point of all of it and why I still find enjoyment in the game, even if they come out with absolute poopy content. Because I
Yep.
feel like if I want to get a card, it's because I want to get it, not because I feel like I have to get them. You know?
It's funny that you say that. Ranked World Series reward. You've got
Yep.
You've got the one that people are upset about, but it's like, it's one of those. Well, granted, it depends on his swing because he had a BR card where his swing was atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
So this is gonna lead
Yeah.
up to another point. I'm gonna go crazy over at Chipper Jones. Switch hitting, he has that swing that I just like, which is a very rare few of people that I can say, because I've also said that about Jimmy Fox in 22. Looked back at my averages, even though, again, new to ranked, new to all of that, didn't know squat. And I was, and still am, an all-star bandit. Because, and this is leading up to my point right now, the game is matchmaking is very I don't want to use the word inconsistent because it tells you that there is a rating differential, like your min max levels. Somebody had brought up, I forgot who it was respectfully on Twitter. It was definitely someone who's partnered, plays the game a lot. I feel like another game mode set on Hall of Fame or higher would benefit those who are really just trying to finally move on up in the race. Like I said, I hit the Division Series for the first time this year, fully playing since 20. I'd like to be able to say, yeah, I hit World Series, I hit that mark. But I'm stuck on All-Star. Like, I went into Division Series, like, I was almost at Championship Series, and all of a sudden, the pitch is by me in, like, 2 seconds, and I'm like, what mode am I on now? Because I don't sit through all the time and, like, it's this team, this record, newly added, what the rank difficulty is going to be. So I got to go through the game log, and all of a sudden, it's like, you're on Hall of Fame, and I'm like, playing on All-Star this whole time, so of course, your tempo's all up. So, to get to the question, do you feel a game mode of some be able to get better at higher difficulty, benefit the player?
My opinion on this, and it's something I've talked about a bit over the last couple of years, is that it just comes down to like what the problem is with ranked. And the problem I think with ranked as a mode is that it's acting like it's like a competitive, player versus player mode where the goal is you get better and you want to get to World Series, things like that. And structurally, though, it doesn't fit that way because, like you said, you have rating windows You could match up with a wider range of players. But the mode, with how it's set up, the ratings aren't always static. It's not like a game like Rocket League, for example, where like maybe if I'm playing in plat, then I'm playing plat players or people just on the border, and it's the same similar skill of player basically most of the time, because you kind of actually hover around the ratings. Problem with ranked is I'm someone, for example, who got the GOAT difficulty. I got to 1,000 rating the previous season. This season starts, I start off at 700. I play on Hall of Fame to start. So obviously, at the beginning of the season, a lot of great players play each other, and they do that normally. Me, I just hadn't gotten to ranked. So I started playing ranked the other day. So I am a 1,000 rating player, someone who can play on GOAT and win most of my games on GOAT, playing someone who is on Hall of Fame, and at this point in the season, likely struggling. And that comes down to how the mode is just structurally flawed. That should not be the case whatsoever. It's like a mix of being like a competitive mode where you play similar skill level players with a mode where you just go through a path of trying to get to World Series or whatever your highest rating is. And in my opinion, they need to split ranked to solve this into two separate things. You make a competitive mode that doesn't explicitly give card rewards. It's basically like Weekend Classic is, where you play people within your division that you get placed in, and you keep on playing people in your division until you rank up to the next division. Now you solely play people in that next division. And it needs those hard locks because in this game, you have different difficulties that change how the game plays. You need to know you're playing a similar skill when you're in a division until you level up to the next one. So I think they need to do something like that, make a competitive mode where you have separate ranks and you fit in your ranks, and your goal is solely to get up in ranks. Your goal is to get better placement, and you get cosmetic rewards, maybe stub rewards for getting divisions, but something to kind of show off like, hey, I'm going up in the ranks, and that's the sole purpose of ranked. Then you can make what current ranked is into its own separate mode as like an alternate 9-inning game mode, where the goal is just called like Road to World Series, we'll call it, where you just start off at a rating, you have rating pluses and minuses, and you just get up to World Series, where it's a similar type of ranked structure where there's a card at the end of it, just not difficulty structured the same way. The goal is just to get the World Series, and then bang, you're done with the mode. And I think if you do that, you have the replayable skill-based mode that they actually want ranked to be as its own thing, heavily based off like other competitive shooters like the Valorants and the Counter-Strikes, and Rocket League, I think, is like the most relatable one since it's a sports game that you have your divisions and it promotes you to get better. You want to try to learn to get better and get placed in your higher divisions. And if not, you at least know you're playing similarly skilled players, so you should have some good games. So you have a mode like that. Then you have a separate mode where you just make the path to World Series. You give a card at the end of it that they currently have. I think that's been my image of what a solution would be, because ranked is kind of trying to be a bit of both. And fundamentally, it has a lot of flaws with being a little bit of both. Like when I was playing those lower level players, I won 3 games before the second inning because people would quit. They saw my team, they saw my 1,000 icon, and they were like, I'm not bothering. It's not competitive enough to get people to want to like play me and get better. They just want to get the World Series. They're assuming they're losing. They're tipping the cap, and the game doesn't really punish you too much. They're not going to lose that much rating. Get it back next game. It's like, fundamentally wrong. So I think that the problem with ranked is that at its core, it's just not set up to be a proper competitive mode that people want it to be. Not even just the players like you who are like you say you're hovering an all-star and bang, sudden Hall of Fame game. That doesn't help you really get better, just getting the very infrequent Hall of Fame game. You get better by playing it over and over and over again. And getting a feel for the timing and everything there. You build up that muscle memory. So you don't do that unless you get to play it consistently. If you play it very infrequently, you just get stuck in this same loop of just, okay, I'm good at All-Star and I can get into Hall of Fame, but that first game in Hall of Fame I lose because I suck at Hall of Fame. So I go back to All-Star and I'm stuck in this constant loop. I hear time and time again that it happens to people. And it's because the mode isn't properly structured to be that type of mode to maybe allow those people to like consistently play in the difficulty. Like make it so like if a player jumps up to the Hall of Fame difficulties, now they're only playing on Hall of Fame, and they maybe get like a little bit of a window where they could lose 2 to 3 games and stay in that division. So they get a little like a beginning forgiveness. That's like a common thing you see in other games where you have like a rating forgiveness. So if you lose your first couple games, you don't get booted down right away. MLBTheShow doesn't have that at all.
No, you get I wish that once you entered a division, you're like you said with your secondary competitive mode, be locked in that division to help you get better. Because I can bounce back and forth to wild card pet. Like I've went from like wild card down and back into low. Just like this is gross. Like this shouldn't be happening. Because I can blame. You know, I can only blame. I can always say, okay, it's my fault, skill issue. Or I could be like, okay, but like my just lates are finding gloves, his just lates are finding the grass. You know, it's the whole battle of RNG, and I'm just, you know, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not here for this. But again, it's the power creep, which I understand, but again, you could so within the idea and keep it within the analytics side of you, do you understand how the rank points, positive minuses work? Because I look at it, it's like 49 one game, 20 something another. It's do you know how
so in general how it goes is in lower rankings you get more points for wins. So if you're sitting at around like 400 rating, for example, like just out like those first 0 to 400 rating games, you're gonna get like around 50 points a win. Because like that those initial divisions are just like very introductory. Like you don't lose points for losing games up until 400 rating, I think it is. So you kind of just like it's like the very beginner division. Then from 400 to about I would say 600, probably 700, you get a little less points. So like you have a 300 point range of like all-star difficulty games. But slightly better players. So it's just like a wider range of points. So I think it's like you get more points, still slightly more points for winning. And I don't know the exact numbers, but there are different like calculations that they have based on the divisions that you are with how many points you get. And then now you jump up to like 700 rating. I think around 700 to 800, you get about, if you're playing similarly skilled opponents, you're going to get about like probably 15 to 30 points. Because you're closer to World Series, that division isn't as wide. It's like a closer range of like 100 points, go from 700 to 800. So you get less points for win. And then when you get up to like Legend and GOAT difficulty games, now you can be playing a wide range of players. So the higher rating players will typically get very little points.
I saw somebody on Twitter get like a -8 for losing.
Basically the big factors are the division that you're in. So the higher division that you're in, you'll typically get less points per win. That's a general trend. And then it's the ratings between you and your opponent. So one thing that people don't know of that much, if you're someone who you're in a rare circumstance, maybe you're playing like late at night and not many people are on, and that rating window gets really wide, and you could be like, I don't know, like 750 rated. You could even be lower than that, but your window gets so big, you could match up with someone who's on GOAT difficulty. That's happened to people. They're on GOAT difficulty, rated like 1300. Their window gets so big, and the other player's window gets so big, whatever hour they're playing at, they match up with a GOAT difficulty player rated like less than 200 rating. The thing that people don't know about that is if that lower rated player were to somehow win that game, they would get a pretty big amount of points. I don't know what the number would be, but they get so many points beating someone who is significantly higher than them. While the good player, if they were to lose that game, they would lose a ton of rating because there's a big rating difference there. So if you're someone who is dabbling and pushing onto Legend difficulty or GOAT difficulty and trying to crawl your way up, you might play a very solid player who's ranked like 1100, 1200, and you might feel, I have no chance of winning this game. But sometimes it's worth giving it a try because you're not going to lose many points. You're not going to lose many points by losing. So like, yes, that might be another incentive to quit. You're not going to lose many points, but you also, it's not much risk there, but it could be big reward that shortcuts you a couple games. So that gets overlooked a lot. Having a big rating difference between your opponent and you, and ideally, like you play opponents where you get the most rating out of every win. And it used to be a bigger problem last year if you had a really big range of rating. Like I believe there were some games where like a top player could play a 0 rated player,
Yeah, I
and
remember.
they would win and get like 1 rating. So like it was a waste of time. So this year they made so you always get a minimum of 10 points per win. So no matter what, you can always get the 10 points. And that goes with co-op too. That's why co-op World Series is a little bit easier to make this year, because you always get a minimum of 10. If any of you played co-op a lot, you may have realized there'd be a lot of points if you really got into 700, 800 rating wise. You'd get like no points per win, is because the rating difference is there. Not many people played co-op to get higher ratings. So now you get 10 points per win at the very least.
What was it? One of my mods here, Unknown, he and I were playing with a third. You know, you're bringing up co-op. I gotta tell you this funny story because it's so funny. Dude goes and tries to pick off Frank Thomas at first. And we're like, okay, like let's start messing with him. Like we take one step, he throws it off again. And you know, like we keep leading, he can't do anything. So he pitches it. Nothing happens. I'm like, hang on, let's see if we can do this. It's gonna be funny if we get him to throw it twice. And we're like, okay. As soon as he pitches it, like we got like halfway to second leading, and we're just like, send him. Yeah, do nothing, can't step off. So you mentioned, I'm gonna circle back to something you said because we're talking, you're talking about the late night crew. Late night crew is typically a lot of your like 1,000 rated players and like plus. You're talking about how people, they'll see you with 1,000 icon badge and be like, no, I'm out. I'm in the wrong rating here. I'm not ready for this. Is there a player or players where you see and you're either shitting your pants or you're just like, let me see if I get lucky with a friend, like friendly?
It's usually about your like top 25 to 50 players. Like, especially right now, like back then when in like 22, when I was really grinding ranked a lot, I wouldn't get too intimidated by top 50 guys because like I knew I was able to compete with them. And I still think now I can compete with top 50 guys, but I've still slowed down on playing. So I'm kind of at that point where I can like dip into GOAT and do all right on GOAT. And I could just dabble in there. If I match up with any of your stereotypical like top players, like the Zazzies, the Criners, any of those dudes, I am petrified. I am sending prayers that they accept my friendly and hope they just spare me, especially if it happens in Weekend Classic. Fingers crossed it hasn't happened yet. If it happens in the Weekend Classic, I'm giving it a few innings. If they score like 5 runs on Go difficulty, I'm just tipping the cap. Goodbye, GG's, man. Because like nowadays, I know I got to be playing at my absolute best to compete with players like that. And I typically don't play enough to do that. I play just enough to beat the average player or people who are just dipping into it. I can't beat the people who are really good at it unless I am just on another level, which doesn't happen that often nowadays.
No, but the days you're feeling good, you're like, oh, I can't wait to play this game again tomorrow. And you're playing it, and it's like, okay, I'm getting mercy ruled here in the 5th inning. What's happening here? Because I've seen so many different people. They always like certain people. They'll be like, he and I are cool. We're just gonna go on our separate ways here. We're not gonna ruin each other's rating.
That's definitely something that happens. Especially when you're pushing for World Series at the beginning of the season, and a lot of people are playing. Good players will see each other and be like, I know he's a good player. I'm not playing him on this difficulty because you're both so good, and the game is going to be a painful experience. So they just friendly and just go along their way.
So I had tried to I did my first ever summer circuit. I believe it was either a fall or summer circuit, and of course it wasn't Battlefy. It wasn't the good one. It was like kind of set up with the intended to. God, I feel so sorry for the Discord mobs. Like just asking the same questions. So I'm just like, I pray for these guys. So I ended up matching with someone who is very, very good. And I saw the name, and I'm just like, I don't want to play anymore. I got paired, go up against Fuentes.
Oh, Fuentes, that guy's a demon.
I saw that name. I'm just like, nah. Like, nah. This. You're kidding, right? Yeah. Like I held my own. Did I technically get mercied? Yes.
Yeah, celebrate not getting mercied right away.
Did I make it all 9 innings? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would celebrate that.
I was like, yeah,
there's levels to it.
I'll take it. Not playing Legend at all. And then I ran into Chatterheads later on. Like, hey, Fletting, duck. I'm fun.
He's good as well, Chowderhead. Yeah. I remember running into him in BR the other year. I remember seeing him around. I'm like, oh, pretty good player. And then I think he absolutely smacked me around and embarrassed me. And I was like, oh, didn't expect that. Didn't know he was like that.
I am like 0-2. I think it is against popular content creators. I matched up late with Major Mangoes one time in a moonshot event. He beat me 4-3. Yeah, I was ironically enough, I was watching his stream, which is kind of like, I'm like, I kind of want to play. Wasn't expecting to match up with him. Gomes, it was another moonshot of, it was another event. Kicked my ass. But no, after the same night after the Fuentes game, I went into Trumination's channel. I'm like, now I see why you always said to my friend, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. He's very good. Those top players, like whenever I talk to people and they talk about like the best players in the game, like it's not just that you get to go difficulty and every player is a similar skill level where like everyone can beat each other or anything like that. There are levels to it. Like I think at this point you probably see the top like around 60 to 70 players on that leaderboard. Most of them are just a different breed from even someone like me. Like I'm someone who could play and compete with them if I was playing my best, but they play ranked so much and it's so second nature to them, even the highest difficulties.
Yeah.
They are so good at like there are levels to it. So like I would say I'm in like the top 1% of the 1%. They're the top like 0.05% of the 1%.
Is there even a percentage? Is there even something you can put them on it? It's just like scratch this. Just put their names. We don't need no percentages. Just put if you can play like these guys
in their own league.
It's like if you can play like these guys,
esports are ridiculous. It's those like there's a group of guys, and you could even pick down those players. There are a lot of players who are top players.
Yeah,
and make top 50 and stuff. But if you consistently watch esports, there's like a pool of about like probably no more than 30 players who consistently do well in those tournaments and even make the top 8. There's like you can look at like 10 players, like a range of 10 players that are like the best of the best.
You're always,
and they're insane.
Yeah, you're always seeing the same people. I mean, granted, they're good. Like kudos to them, but you know, thankfully, you know, in a way, there's an advantage, especially from like just a casual viewer standpoint, is because you know when you watch this person and this person, you know you're gonna be in for a light show. Like people got excited over, I think it was Reiner and Alex Cagill. Yeah, everyone got excited about that. Frosty, Kreiner, like just those. You see those names, and you just know that you're in for something special. And I think last year, within, you know, the past couple years within the MLBTheShow, I'd say 22 on the competitive scene of just even watching has grown, you know, exponentially, you know, because especially with how, you know, you got yourself, Yayo, you got like people who do these watch parties, you know, and like you especially, because I like watching you, because again, you go, because you're an analytics person. I like analytics. I like possibilities. I like thinking about that type of stuff in terms. So it's fun watching, you know, one of my favorite ones was it was Hannah and Trumanation Grand Slam. I remember being there for that.
Yeah.
Um, so how did MLB the Show come to you and be like, we think you'd be great as someone who does watch parties? Because
Mm-hmm.
you look at anybody and anyone. You don't necessarily focus on the top players all
Mm-hmm.
the time. You show the spotlight on some people. Well,
Yeah,
like did
it's a good question. In terms of how I got reached out about, I've already had some level of communication with them over the last few years. It started back in, I believe, MLB 22 was when the whole thing was going down, and they decided to make a move. I think after a couple of us, I think me and Thune had done some of our own watch parties in our own time, probably mostly Thune with some of those circuit events. And around then, a little bit after, they had someone on their esports team. They're like, hey, like it would be cool if like we made this a thing. Like you guys could be like ambassadors. You do some watch parties, and we got reached out directly by an employee at SDS, and we started then. We basically was going into some of the details of we would find out the info of the events, they give us our initial feedback, and see, we would like kind of speak for the community and be like, okay, we think they might like this. You should make this clear. You should watch this, and we would kind of do all those things leading up to the tournaments where we would do the watch parties and sometimes have the broadcast on SCS's channel. And it was kind of that same way for it was that way for the last couple years. And I had been an ambassador, as you could say, where really we worked with them specifically to cover the events. We would commentate whenever, like if they needed people, we would do the watch parties whenever we were physically able to, and it was literally like our job with SES. Like we collaborated with them to do that, and that I had done it until this year. This is the first year I decided to step off and not do it just because of the time commitment with it.
yeah.
But I know Yayo and Prof and JX are guys who are still getting at it, doing that coverage, and it's a pretty cool thing seeing them work with the community, people who at least like play the game enough and are in touch with the player base to kind
Yep.
of get a basis of like what people like, don't like, and especially like I mean, I always look back to Thune for even getting me into the commentary stuff because his commentary was so great, and his whole thing getting into MLB the Show content was commentating. Like
Yeah.
he grew as an MLB the Show content creator by commentating Twins games in MLB the Show during the pandemic.
Oh, no kidding. You
So
see,
it
I
it
say
was
this
a
a lot.
cool part of like his content, and he kept going with it with esports.
You see, I always say this about different streamers that I've come across. There's so many different people that I wish met day one. Like, there's so many people that are partnered because obviously, streaming services, they're gonna push the people who have that little check mark next to them. It's like, you kind of wish you were there from the start. There's so many people, so many people in the MLB. Because, I've hung out in Thune's stream, I think it was 23, going over the chin of Mike Lowell to figure out that it was him. Like, we're like deep, like, back when you had your whole flashbacks of the check Twitter scan. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely like the fact that the show with the ambassadors went with they definitely went diverse, which is great. You have
Mm-hmm.
Yayo. Yayo is he speaks both English and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have those who also speak Spanish, so that way, there's no exclusion. Um, if if that makes sense. So it's kind of nice to
Yeah, yeah,
that
different
giving
crowds.
people, yeah, giving people the opportunities, different crowds. Again, like you said, different groups of the fan base.
Yeah, that was something that kind of just happened passively too. I believe at the beginning it was just I think it was me, Thune, Yayo mainly at the beginning, and then that kind of progressed to JX and Prof because they were dudes who enjoyed the game and they realized like, oh, there's like a whole other audience of Spanish speaking MLB the Show fans that can't watch the broadcast in the same way because they just don't speak enough English, or they just prefer to watch people speaking Spanish. And it was really cool to kind of see it develop. It's something that I think a lot of people don't even know the most about. Like there is like a whole other community here of people who are Spanish speaking creators and people who just play the game. Cause like the cool thing about baseball is it really dips into the Latino like culture, and you get that part of the game. And sometimes if you're even in the MLB The Show directory, sometimes you even see streamers who are Japanese streamers who are like at the top of the directory playing MLB The Show for the fun of it. And you're like, oh, you know, there's even that audience of people that people probably don't even know exist in terms of like people watching it, people play the game, which is really cool. Kind of opened my eyes to that, getting to know like JX and stuff. Like he has a pretty big audience just through MLB The Show on like Facebook, I believe. Like he grew a lot on Facebook and Instagram, which was like for me, like I don't know Twitch and YouTube people.
Yeah, same. Like I just found out the other day that Facebook still does live streaming for game. I'm like,
yeah,
they still do that. I thought they, I honestly thought they shut down. I like no disrespect, I thought they shut down. Yeah, no, there's definitely like, you know, some content fields and stuff that I still gotta pick and learn about. I'm trying to finally dip my toes in different things, trying to make sure I do different things. But keep it on the road of this somewhat roadmap, I guess, talking about the competitive side of the esports. We've gotten raised past 2 years. We have gotten Raise Gaming. Do you think the Rangers have teased dipping their toes into the East? Do you think there are going to be teams that are going to follow like region-wise, or do you think that eventually all 32 teams might end up having some form of, you know, that esports tournament, or do you think there are some that'll definitely elevate the esports side of it more than others? Because I could already name one team off the top of my head, you know, unbiased. I'm gonna let you say first who you think could benefit, like, or can elevate.
This might sound unexpected, but I think at its core, and this is from just speaking over the last couple of years, I remember hearing about the Rays doing the tournament. I was like, oh, is this going to be a trend for all the MLB teams or more teams? And I know the Rangers did do a couple of tournaments.
They did do.
Okay. I think they did a couple like online tournaments or something along those lines. They did a couple of those. I think it just comes down to really the teams, if they have anyone in their marketing staff who is very passionate about esports, or like Texas, for example, like where, for example, I know the Rangers have even done multiple collaborations with Optic Gaming, the esports org. Yeah, they had like a esports jersey night. It was a Rangers jersey colored in black and green, like Optic. So like it's
was it
a solid spot for esports down there in Texas. So where their location wise, it made sense that was a thing.
Yeah,
I think the one problem is that if you've kept up with esports headlines over the last, like, I guess we'll say 3-4 years, a lot of esports end up being not profitable. Like a lot of games have tried it. A lot of games and companies that have invested money into esports, and it is very difficult to be profitable. Not even just for the games themselves making the esports, the people who are making teams or investing in players, because it's so difficult. It's not something that grew exactly in the way people expected. You just have the big esports that have kind of developed and kind of stuck around, and overall it hasn't grown. If anything, it's sank a lot of like layoffs and dumped the money. It doesn't do the best. So for an MLB team to commit similar effort and money like the Rays are doing, it's going to require them to really have a lot of proof of concept that esports are growing in this community and a lot of people are going to play. As much as I personally enjoy them, I don't think they're growing in the way that would make teams do that yet. So unless something really changes, it might not, because I don't know if MLB The Show is just a game or a community built for an esport. I know 2K has like the 2K League, and Madden has their esports. It probably just comes down to how SDS properly pushes the esports MLB The Show. And the tough part about it is to be interested even in competing in the esports, you probably want to play the game a lot. And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't play the game to that level. And then also there's so much skill involved to be at that top level. And not just skill as in like knowledge of the game or anything. It's reaction time, muscle memory, where things that are like in other esports, like the shooters of the world, where you have such a limited window of players who could even fit that
Yeah.
range. The games like Madden, for example, at least from my understanding, you don't need the greatest reaction time. Like you could be a slightly older player and still be good at Madden because you just have the football and the game skill
Yeah.
to understand how to
The
beat
knowledge
players.
behind
MLB
the
The
game.
Show, you don't have that same thing. You have a very limited range of people who can be good. And
Yeah.
I don't think MLB The Show just has enough players really interested for that to really grow. And as much as I've loved esports and I've loved seeing SES try to do things,
Yeah.
that combined with some issues over the last couple years with the events,
Yeah.
them kind of messing around, finding a structure that works, they haven't found their footing there. So I'd honestly be more shocked if more esports grow from the Rays tournament. And that doesn't go to discredit what the Rays doing because they're doing a great job.
No, they're doing a great. They're doing it again
and I
this
think
year.
they're
They've
doing
invited
it.
new people.
They're doing it very right. I mean, I actually took part in commentating their last qualifier because they needed an emergency commentator, and I'm like, yeah, sure thing, dude. I didn't anticipate doing esports stuff, and it was like almost better than I expected. So they're doing things that are great. It's just more so that I don't know if this community and game are really fit for like a big esport like you see in some of the other sports games. I don't know if MLB The Show is really 100% there, which means teams probably won't be investing that similar effort like you would see with the Rays. I think the Rays do because they just love it a lot. The guys over there really love esports, and it does market their team, and it fits what they're doing. But a lot of teams probably don't feel the same way, unfortunately.
Yeah, because like the Rays concept, you put on the Rays, you put on the Rays, your Diamond Dynasty, it's all Rays, it's all live series, it's on this, like it's set up properly and it's set up well. It's simple to follow, to go around, because it's you're playing as the live series Rays. Now, there are a few teams that because granted, there's real 99s out there. Even Tony Clark just recently put out that someone found out that he has. I feel like if there are I have a third option kind of, but it's more of a concept, not necessarily these two teams have to get involved, but it'd be pretty cool. So number one, Dodgers. I feel like a Dodgers esports tournament would be fun, especially granted that was back when he was on the Angels. Ohtani being a cover star, you had any team that had a cover star, I guess, because I know that with 24 we had Ramon go down to where Vlad grew up and stuff like that. So connections, that style of connections. But going to Dodgers have a huge fan base. Definitely one of the more expensive live series cards. Definitely, possibly more of a reward could come from it. It's because everyone gets flown out down to Tampa, play at the stadium. You play Dodger Stadium, get the chance, possibly meet some of the players, managers, if anything. Just because of how big of a crowd, especially from an international standpoint, with Ohtani, Roki, and Yamamoto. I knew Roki was gonna sign with Dodgers. Dodgers win the World Series. Yeah. Roki's going over there. Why wouldn't he go with people who he's played with in the past who'd have his back? This one might be a bit of an oddball, but it's definitely another player base, another team base that gets hot and heavy during playoff time is the Phillies. Phillies, beautiful ballpark, definitely a strong live series. Some little sneaks come in here and there, not necessarily with the live series, but you got Trey Turner and Bryce Harper, who once they get a big card, they're in everybody's lineup. But granted, again, still focusing on the live series. I think a fun concept that SDS could use is make a weekend classic, but make it rivalry. Like
Mhm.
one weekend you have Red Sox strong is what it once was. Red Sox, Yankees, Yankees, Mets. What's another one? Phillies and Braves. Phillies and Mets. Like something along those lines. Just mix it up. Make it, and like, oh, choose which team. You'll probably have people like, oh, I'm going to choose the Yankees because they have the better live series. Or you have, the loyal fan bases. Me over here, I'm going Red Sox. I don't care if I get my ass kicked by 98 live series Aaron Judge and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think with esports, and this kind of all rolls around the same conversation here. Is it one piece of feedback I've given to SCS a lot is that I think if they really wanted to grow esports, they need regularly occurring things like events that people feel like they would want to sign up for, like pretty frequently, like monthly at least, and things that actually have some higher stakes to them. And I think it's what some of the other esports do well. Like they kind of build it fundamentally into the game. On MLB The Show, you just have a couple big tournaments in a year. There's some qualifiers that lead up to it, but the events haven't all like happened frequently enough for people to really feel like they can invest into it. And from a player or a viewer perspective, like from a player perspective, you only have a few opportunities to compete in a tournament. And from a viewer perspective, you don't get to know the players much because not many tournaments happen. So you
Yep.
don't get to build those attachments of players like other esports where you build attachments to teams and you start to root for teams because you see them playing all the time. Like that's been a big piece of feedback. And in my opinion, I think this all revolves with the MLB teams getting interested and
Yep.
esports growing in a similar way. I don't think you see much go on in esports until you see more frequently occurring events. And I think
Yep.
maybe the first step, like you said, is the weekend classic. If people love weekend classic and that's something that they enjoy, if you could find ways to tie that or lead that into esports events to get people to want to compete further, then maybe you have something there to keep growing. And I'm hoping Weekend Classic is that thing that really maybe shows that people want to compete or have some more competitive MLB The Show, because there is something there in terms of esports. There's a community of people that enjoy it, but it's not big enough to really cause action from SCS to put that much more effort, I don't think, or for like MLB teams to invest in more tournaments. So I feel like we're kind of in like a weird loop that like something just kind of needs to magically happen
Yep.
to draw interest in those things to really see stuff like that. I'm not sure what the answer is. I might not know the answer or even know what options there are, but I kind of feel like we're just gonna kind of be stagnant for esports for a bit
Yeah.
until something drastic happens. If like I think Weekend Classic's probably the best chance at it, where if people love Weekend Classic and they rave about it and they keep on growing this into something, then maybe that'll further incentivize esports tournaments and get more people to want to play in those. And I'm really curious how it develops over this year and next year, however long they do it, because I think there's something there. I think the Weekend Classic shows that people
Yeah.
enjoy high stakes games in MLB The Show, not just playing but watching them. And there's something there. They just got to find ways to translate that into esports events, which I don't think they've done. You don't remember if you haven't played MLB 19,
That
but
was the
back in
one.
MLB The
Nice.
Show 19, they had their first esports tournament. It was an event ran by ESL, but it was
Yep.
collabed with MLB The Show. And everyone was so on board with it back then. Like Cougs played in the tournament. Like someone like him doesn't bother with these sports tournaments nowadays,
Yeah.
but he played in that. Nearly everyone who was a consistent creator in the game tried the tournament back then, because back then it was a completely different time. People were like, "Oh, there's esports. It'd be fun to dip into this. It could be something big for the game." But unfortunately for MLB The Show, even back in 19, hasn't grown enough
Yeah.
to really warrant that much into it. It doesn't like it's not like other games even. I think you even see in games like Madden, a lot of bigger creators will take part in esports events.
Yep.
Or at the very least, you'll see tournaments run by the game getting creators into tournaments. You don't see many creator tournaments ran by MLB The Show that kind of like onboard people to that format. They kind
Yeah.
of don't
Because
do
what
much of
was
that
it?
nowadays.
No, I know they did it last year because I tried it. It was Scuffy. Scuffy had done like a community, but it was a PS5 only thing.
Yeah,
It was so
those
weird. I
community
mean,
series were kind of like a community thing. That was kind of their attempt at doing that, where a creator hosted the tournament. I mean, I hosted one,
but
and really it was just
uh,
ran like another tournament. It was just me as the host of it, which I think what they need to do more of is do more creator tournaments. Like if you remember, I don't know if you remember the Creator Cup in MLB 22
yeah,
that went down where they got a bunch of creators on the stage and they did a
yep,
tournament on stage there. That I think is stuff that onboards people into esports. When you
yeah,
see their favorite YouTubers or streamers compete head to head in a tournament like that, it's fun to watch because now you're rooting. You know, you already have someone you're rooting for. You're seeing
yeah,
them in that type of format, and now imagine getting that more often, but with the best players in the game. It leads those people right into it.
yep.
Fortunately, that doesn't happen often enough, but you see it in some other games. They have a lot of creator driven events that bring these people together to make it like a must watch thing.
I'm surprised because typically, because I know, like, pretty sure 22, you guys were invited out to the All Star game. You
Yeah.
guys, it was flown out. Honestly, that is because it's a peak time in MLB the Show. There are a few times that people get excited in MLB the Show. They get excited on launch, first collection card, the All Star Series cards, and then the
Yeah.
postseason card. Sure, there's people like you who really love the extreme moment,
Yeah.
tweeting out like Scann. They listen to you. Stop, please. We beg. Someone said it took like they went to bed crying one night over the 4 home run shit. I was like, oh, Scann, look what you're doing, man. I feel like that. You have the 3-day All Star break. Like honestly, with SDS's connect with MLB, because it expands to not only real 99. You got Roflop. You could be having, he's got, sure, no one's gonna pay for like an MLB network, but you have an MLB gaming Twitch page, which was used for creators. I mean, if it could end up on TV, like I feel like Roflo would be the guy to help with that, because there's definitely a dedication to it that I can see that's there. Granted, like you said, it's probably not marketable enough, but to be able to have the different options of, like, you have SDS, you have the MLB gaming page, or you have some creator live at that event. I think it would break it wide open, especially with the All Star game, that home run derby All Star game.
Yeah, I mean they literally work with the MLB. So like if they want to get something on TV, they could just do it on MLB Network. Unfortunately, I think the thing that gets forgotten and I guess is it's almost like a large scheme problem with MLB the Show and many games out there is that there's almost like this level of like they gotta play it safe where it's tough to be like, hey, let's spend the money that we would
Yeah,
need to do this, spend the money to do this. And it's almost like fear of doing it makes it tough. And
yeah,
even though MLB The Show is like a very big sports game, and yes, it's under Sony, very big game company, it's a little different than some of the other sports games out there because you have 2K, which has gotten massive
yep,
as a company, and you have EA, which is obviously EA, one of the
yeah,
biggest game companies out there. So the way that they allocate their money for things like that, for esports or events like that, it's different than what SDS is doing. And SDS chooses to put their money into some of the other things in comparison to some of those games. And it's a weird spot. As someone who loves this game, you want to see it like get to a level like other sports games out there because
yeah,
like at its core, it's fun in a way that like those other sports games aren't. But they just don't make those big moves like you see other games and stuff do, which unfortunately kind of limits it. And it also stuns when they've done things like that. there have been so many negatives that have come out of it. It's almost like, I think they've almost gotten a fear of some things. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, like you didn't play MLB 19, but they actually had content creators in MLB 19
I've
that,
seen people bring it up, bring it back
yep,
up. I've seen, spoofs of people creating their own.
yep,
And again, this is it's big names too. You got your Cougs. I've seen, Ashley Sanders get her. I think they gave her like someone gave her like Mini Minosa, because she's
yeah.
a White
Back
Sox
in
fan.
MLB 19, what it was, they had they first of all got a bunch of creators. It was Cougs, Cougs, Mighty Goat. Back there was some Quashtag who was a creator, Sporer, a bunch of like creators back then who played the game pretty regularly, who had already done stuff with SCS. They got face scanned into the game. So if you set their real life name as your created player, it would put their face scan and the player build on the player. And then in the year during Diamond Dynasty, they got their own explicit programs. So there was like the Cougs program where you completed it and you got a Bartolo Clone Angels card. And it was something that I think a lot of people enjoyed. And it was almost like before its time. It was like ahead of its time before
Yep.
games and creators really collabed often. It got a lot of scrutiny from like a loud minority part of the player base because these players were now put onto a scope. They collaborated with the game, so people kept an eye out on everything. And there were some things that happened where two creators matched up in a ranked game. It was one of the players' World Series games. The other one just quit because he was just like, I don't care. So he quit, and people saw that and like, oh, he intentionally boosted to make him wake World
Yeah, I remember
Series.
that being like
That
a
got
huge thing.
scrutinized by like a loud minority. And we already know it with SDS and how they handle with legends, where if a legend gets even mentioned in drama, they take them out of the legend pool that next year, even if they didn't actually do anything or if it didn't end
Yeah.
up that way. If they're just mentioned in drama like that, they're not afraid to take a legend out. So it happened then. They never did the creator thing ever again.
Yeah.
And they've been very limited in how they collaborate with creators, I think, because of that thing
That.
that happened
Yeah.
6 years ago. And it's stuff like that that'll happen over time that'll make a company feel stingy to ever do things like that again.
I
And
was.
it's stuff like that that happens that people overlook, where it's like, these could be things that could grow the game or get people interested in, but one thing happens, they get worried about doing those things again, and those things stick with them. It's why I was honestly shocked they had the event where they flew out all the people before the game came out and let them get early access to the
Yeah.
game to record content. That was the first time they've ever done anything like that, to get
Yeah.
like
No, I
early
haven't seen that
content like
myself
that.
either. It was
So
definitely
I
interesting to see the people's like, because you got the guys they flow down. They're talking about how great the game is, and then all of a sudden, like on release, they're kind of like not necessarily like changing their opinion, but they're definitely giving you that more open opinion about it, I guess. Because granted, again, game wasn't released, no tech test. Like they were getting the tech test without us.
Yeah, I'll say what it is, and this happens with so many games, and I think people like to pin it on, oh, they got paid for this.
Yeah, I
Usually,
hate
what
that. I
it
feel so
is,
bad.
usually what it is like at the end of the day, all those guys and a lot of us who make content in the game we're diehard fans of the game. We
Yep.
enjoy the game. We get excited about it every release because it's just the mainstay of our lives. Like a new game, we are always consistently playing it. And even if we're making content on it or not as a job, a lot of us just enjoy the game like that at its core, where we're excited for a new game. And then a new game comes out, you play it some more, you start to run into some things that are problems.
Yeah.
Some people amplify those problems more than others, where they have a problem, they're not afraid to talk about it and almost like make it seem like it's the end of the world because whatever they
Yeah.
experienced made them feel that way, which happens based on different people. Different people have different experiences and different ways to express their opinion. And that's what it all comes down to. People are usually generally optimistic because we're always excited. Like, think about how people were about sets and seasons before it came out.
Yeah.
People were optimistic, hoping that it
Yeah.
worked out well. Hindsight 2020, we don't know how SDS is going to implement it. We don't know how it plays in application. And we give it a go for 2 years. People don't love it by the end of it. So they move on from it. It's that type of thing where people love the game so much. They're excited for the new product. They got a little teaser of it where they can play it for like a couple hours at most. So like they're as excited for the new game. So they're very excited, positive about it in the content. And this happens in every game when they fly out creators. Most people are generally excited about things and it maybe shares some early feedback like, hey, you know, this might be a problem. Hey, keep an eye out on this. Game comes out, they actually give it a playthrough like they normally would. And those problems actually become problems that are worth fixing or patching, whatever it is. And this is with like every game that happens to people out there.
Well, like we found out that it's around this time that they're already in development for next year's game.
Yeah,
they have to be, which I understand.
Yeah, so, they start pretty early on. So in the game cycle.
So 23, the sets and were honestly, I feel like people actually like sets and seasons in 23. It's just the fact that they heard that they wanted the power creep back, but then they also, because they took the feedback of sets and seasons, they try to incorporate both. It didn't work. Like I said, I like the sets and seasons in 23. I mean, sure, it kind of sucked seeing the same lineup over and over and over again for a certain period of time. But you know, like they're coming up with what sucks with all games. This is all games. This isn't just MLB. They try doing something different, or whatever is suggested, and then they get shit on it for putting it in the game, even though they were trying to listen to us in some way, shape, or form. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but at least they're giving the attempt. And this year is definitely a test year for SDS and MLBTheShow because of the fact that it's on next gen only, not on the previous.
Yeah, I would say more so that I think the sentiment is true that, you know, they just go out there and they try things because it's based off of our feedback. Like back in MLB 22, they could tell people were getting tired of the same power creep format for Diamond Dynasty and grind the same things over and over again. And they just took a chance that other sports games didn't, and they took inspiration from things outside of sports games and other card collecting modes. I believe like they took inspiration from games like Magic the Gathering, where they have sets of cards that rotate in and out. So they tried implementing it in MLBTheShow way. Obviously, 23 was very heavy on that, where you could only use them for such limited amounts of times. Then they learned, it took us going through that to learn that, you know, people really value cards for longer, and they want to feel that power creep type grind where they're starting from square one and they get value for their time building up their team bit by bit. So they tried 24 stuff. And then again in 24, they realize, yeah, you know, people just want to be able to build up that team. That comes in priority. And you don't learn those things until you try something.
Try them out. Exactly.
And you could look back to so many different games where, like, and I'm going to call it right now, in about 2 years' time, there are going to be people who look back to MLB 23 and 24 and they'll be like, man, I miss those games.
Yeah.
Sets and seasons were overhated because it happens in every game.
Every game there's always something.
When Call of Duty changed from being a boots on the ground only first person shooter to adding boost jumps and futuristic and running on walls. Did that for a few years.
That was fun.
Some people liked it. A lot of people enjoyed it. But more people wanted to go back to its roots and what they liked about it in the first place. It didn't take them doing that to recognize, okay, people like this about Call of Duty. So they went back to Modern Warfare again in 2019. And games are going to always try something new.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I think with all the stuff with MLBTheShow, just for me, I enjoy it because it's baseball. It's MLBTheShow. I get my fix of baseball. So as long as I have things that I can do that kind of make me want to keep on playing baseball, I feel like no matter what, I'm going to keep up with the game as long as I just enjoy keeping on playing baseball, because I've always played games like that. I've always had a baseball game to mess around and play with in some capacity. If Diamond Dynasty is horrible one year, then I'll mess around with more franchise or Road to the Show or something because I enjoy it that way. So for me, I've just learned to enjoy MLBTheShow because I love him. I just love baseball games. I'll find some enjoyment out of it, even if some things suck. and I'm entirely okay with it. And I feel like at this point, this is a very common gaming thing. A lot of people have just almost like with the internet, we find people who have similar opinions to us. We find people
Yeah.
who love the game no matter what and don't want to offer any negative feedback. There are people who hate everything about it, and they all kind of find each other in social media. We all find people with similar opinions to us, and we
Yeah.
start to think that, like, this is the only way to think about the game because we all think this is how the game should be based on how we play the game. This
Yeah.
is how we should play the game. And over these last few years, I've really just tried taking a step back because I was one of those dudes when I played DD all the time. I felt like the way I played the game was the way to play the game because I thought that's how most people wanted to
Because so
play it.
you know, it's like it's working for you. It's where you find other people. It's working for others, and then, like you're saying, you got a few sour grapes within the community, whether it's streamer or not. If people know about back then Twitter drama, they know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's we all. There's so many times where just the craziest things have happened, and I think within the past, I'd say last year and about this year, the community's been kind of more collectively in tune with what they wanted out of the game, and we're seeing new things outside of the game as well starting to pop up through MLB the Show within streamers.
Yeah, I will say, when back I was being someone who was in the community back in MLB 19 and 20, back then the community, at least the opinions you heard were mostly all very similar back then. It was like a very unified type vibe a lot of us regular players had cuz like back then there weren't as many ways to play the game and there weren't as many things to do, so people just funneled to do similar things. So a lot of us felt similarly because we played the game the same way. And then when 21 dropped and Xbox and Switch players came in, then you have a whole new audience of just brand new players.
Yep.
That already started changing things as the years have gone on. People funnel themselves into, like we talked about, the offline players, people who play online competitively, people who make content, people who play different modes, and they all kind of find each other, and these sub communities kind of build within the big MLB the Show community. So you hear so many takes and so many people who have different opinions. And at least for me, I've just gotten to the point now where like I try not to like fit myself into one of those things because now even me, I'm trying all the modes in the game again. I'm
Yep.
trying to give them all a go. I'm trying to understand why people like or don't like things from their perspectives and how they play, and kind of like learning more about the different players of the game. And for me, it's made things a lot more fun. And I don't even care. Like I don't even like lumping people into like the overly positive or overly negative people because at the end of the day, everyone plays the game for a different reason,
Yep.
and whatever experiences they have that lead them one way or the other is going to make them feel whatever way, and they're probably valid to have that opinion. And it for me, I try not to even bother with it too much nowadays because I'm just trying to find the fun of it, and I just
Yeah.
try to find the fun of it no matter what. So even if things are going great or really badly, I just like to share when I'm enjoying things. And it's almost like it's like almost like a weird thing to say because you don't see it much on the internet nowadays. A lot of people just they play the game when they recognize they have a place for like a feedback. They share their feedback. They'll rant about the game when they had an annoying game session. It's entirely valid and normal. So it's almost like weird to be that person who's just kind of like taking a step back. But I've really made that a priority of mine
Yeah.
ever since 2023 to just take a step back, just find the fun of it. Because at the end of the day, I'm just an MLB the Show fan, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are too. A lot of people don't even just play the game in one way, like a lot of us do as content creators. A lot of people just dip their toes in DD, mostly do franchise. A lot of people dabble in a little bit of everything. So it's kind of cool to just take a step back and like recognize, I just enjoy MLB the Show. Good MLB the Show, and I think a lot of people are in that same boat. where they kind of just play things to play things. And the online opinions honestly may not represent a large majority of players nowadays, just because there's so many different people who play this game nowadays for different reasons. You can never, there's never going to be a case where everyone's going to be happy, no matter
you can't
what.
please everyone.
There will never be one game that makes everyone happy. And every year, you get the optimism heading into the year that, oh, if you do this one thing, this is going to be the best game ever.
Yeah, always.
Year starts, similar people will complain, and then vice versa. The people who are very negative about it might come into it and be like, yeah, you know what? This is better than I expected. It's a common theme. It happens all the time in every game and every sub community. So I think it's cool to just try to enjoy the process for the process and just enjoy the game for what it is, even if it is absolute dookie and I play it sometimes and makes me want to rip my eyeballs out. Find the fun in the things there, because there is always something that pulls me back.
I mean, yeah, I'm the one who brought up like the Diamond Quest situation, egg hunt, recently. However, I feel like at least through the people that I follow that pop my FYP, I see nothing. I see nothing but just either. I feel like I've been seeing a lot more positive so early on this year than I have with other games. And between 24 and going from 23 and 24, now 25, a lot of people are just talking about, sure, the only time I really see any true, I wouldn't say negative, but like not so great, is just questioning certain attributes. Other than that, people are just like, oh, I got P5 this, I pulled this card, I hit this rating, or this happened in this game. Like, it's never really anything as negative as what it could be.
Yeah, I think I will say a lot of, especially if you're looking on the Twitter for you, that algorithm very feeds into negativity a lot. So I think there are a lot of people who play very casually, surface level, maybe even follow some people like me just to keep up with like the news of the game and what's new. They get fed a lot of like negative tweets. I mean, like I could just speak from experience. When I point out a criticism of the game, like of somewhat valid criticism, those tweets in general will make their waves around, because I mean, if you're on Twitter a lot nowadays, it feels like in general it's a platform that fosters negativity, not just in MLBTheShow. It's just what it is as a platform. So it's like that with every platform. Like a lot of times YouTube videos with negative subjects just pull people in. So it's a normal part of the internet. And sometimes people forget that the internet feeds into that. So when people see consistent algorithm showing them posts of people being negative about the game, they assume everyone is complaining about the game and hates everything about the game. But it's just the algorithm feeding like a post to them just because thematically they think they're going to be interested in it. In general, I will say, just from responses, it feels just about my responses and things that I see feel similar to 23 and 24, at least as of right now. Because there is the same, in my eyes, there's the same amount of people who are saying like, oh, this is pretty cool, this is pretty neat, and then similar amount of people who are like, I hate this thing. I can't believe you guys like this thing.
Yeah.
So at least from my experience, I feel like I see a similar amount, but I don't think that's reflective of the game itself. I think I like to judge just based off of like, it might not be the best judgment all the time, but just viewer numbers on like Twitch. They're kind of a solid judgment, because if people are enjoying the game and they're wanting to keep up with it, many times you're going to watch the creators playing the game. And when I see like the bigger creators building up a bigger core audience on streaming side, a lot of times it comes from people enjoying the game enough to want to keep watching their favorite creator play the game. If people are not interested in the game, usually no matter how fun the creator is, a lot of them stop wanting to watch the game on Twitch, especially since it's like a connection-based platform, because they don't care about the game. They don't want to even, if they don't, they're just going to dip out and find something else. So I find that it's not the worst metric to judge by And I felt like from what I've seen there have been a lot of people more alive in that directory. More people streaming it,
Yep.
more people who are involved in the big creators communities, which has been very cool to see. So I would say I think this year feels like a year for that core audience of players and the people who love Diamond Dynasty. In general, it feels like a year that makes them happy. The people who got into it before MLB 23 for the power creep and building up their team that way. It's kind of like paying homage to what was a thing back then. And they did that by adding Carlos Beltran as a legend, who was like an old school favorite legend back in the day. They got Ted Williams back. They have the power creep back. So it's kind of like pulling back some of those old things and why people like the game and hopefully implementing them in a way where the people who got into it in 23 and 24, maybe they'll enjoy it as well. It's never going to make everyone happy, but in general, I think it's making a lot of the OG folk who used to love the game happy, which I think was kind of big because I felt like they were losing track of that with the sets and seasons. They're kind of losing that core audience, people that got into it for one reason or another.
No, that I could definitely see that. I definitely agree with that. I was very hesitant about buying this game. There's multiple reasons for that besides just me worried about the connectivity, the gameplay, which I mean we kind of seen those issues that I kind of pointed out, and then they just I saw them playing. I'm like, okay, it kind of looks the same, and then they roped me in with the way that I knew they were gonna rope me. That they put out the Legends. And of course,
I'll tell you what, they pulled you in this year, buddy. They pulled you in with all these legends. You saw Ted Williams, Jason Varitek, all the Red Sox cards at the beginning of the year, Christian Campbell, Roman Anthony.
I'm like, see my tweets. Because I even, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, these legends are cool. Granted, I completely missed. I will be openly honest. I completely missed the fact that it was Roger Clemens pitching Manny Ramirez.
Yep.
So, which, by the way, first Hall of Fame game was with Roger Clemens, and I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So, like I said, I had made a 22 Varitek cap because I needed that catcher. Did it look exactly like him? Absolutely not. But he had the height, the weight, the location, the number, as close to a batting stance as possible.
I did the exact same thing with Jeter too.
I saw the name, and I'm like, oh no. They did not just do this.
You got bought in. You got bought in at that point.
I'm like,
that's when you put in your pre-order right then and there.
I'm like, all right, what's payday?
You're like digital deluxe version. Get that on lock. I'm getting the pre-order packs. I'm getting it all. ICJs and Varitek. Give me all of that. And then the game came out, and you saw Christian Campbell. You saw Roman Anthony. Weekend, you get a David Ortiz in that last ride program. And you're like, okay, are they making this game for me?
I'm like, they catered to the Red Sox fans this year. I'm liking this. But there was one head scratch. I don't know if there's one legend you saw within the trailer, within the Legends collections. You kind of had the head scratcher. I'm like, okay, they're bringing back Varitek. Who else are they bringing back? And I'm like, okay, they're bringing him, and they're like, play Buckholz. I'm like,
yeah,
play Buckholz. Really? That's who we went with. But that means we'll get a no-hitter card with him. And surprisingly, he's one of my best pitchers on All-Star too.
Yep.
I'm like,
you know why they went for him? They double checked into some older Red Sox names, and they're like, who throws a sinker and a cutter?
Yeah, it was like, who's gonna throw them?
Oh yeah, look at that Clay Buckholz. He was pretty good. He was a 2000s name, 2010s name.
I'm like, who asked for this?
They do that. They will do that, and I think it's the thing with MLBTheShow and their legends, and I'm pretty sure it is way. I don't have 100% fact, but they go out of their way to pay for the rights for all of the legends that they add single-handedly.
They have to. I swear
I believe, and this is something from some surface level research, in the past, games like NBA 2K would get legends without paying them personally for their rights.
Ooh.
And players like Charles Barkley opted out of it because he's like, I'm opting out of it until people get paid for their rights to be used in the multi-billion-dollar game.
That's smart.
And that was something he had done like a long while ago. And I don't know if it's something MLB The Show can even do, where they could just get their rights without asking the players. But I know, I'm like very sure they just have like a budget that they use for Legends rights, and they reach out to whatever the player themselves or whoever represents them legally to try to obtain their rights. So that's why we have this like constant rotating a pool where some players will have a few years and they'll get the boot, and then someone else will get their place. So that's why they like to dip into those lower to mid-tier names like a Clay Buchholz, because you're like, he might not be the most exciting name, but if we're going to make a legend get a good card, and it's new, then that's someone we can get some value out of, because people would not only would use him because he's a good card, like they're getting their double value there. They're getting some Red Sox players, but they're also getting a good card out of it, and it's not like they're going to have to pay crazy big money to obtain his rights in comparison to like Alex Rodriguez, for example.
The people that everybody wants, like, oh, it's gonna be A-Rod. It's like I agree with what most people say. Your A-Rods, your Ichiros, your Bonds, those are going to be at launch, ready, available for a lower overall, and find a way to enjoy it before you have to grind for that 99. Which, going back on the trail, another thing I was worried about this year was are we going to get the same recycled legends? Because the only legend that I know of, and this is probably folklore at this point, I don't know how valid this is Dontrell Willis is the only one that has openly gone and just said, I don't care if I'm dead or alive, you're keeping me in.
I've seen multiple players individually reach out and want to be a legend, like Adam Jones.
Really?
He said, hey, I don't know what we got to do. Get me in the game. And that happened with Dontrell Willis in the exact same way. He was like, hey, I'll be a legend in the game. Just I'll reach out to me. We'll make it happen. I want to. And Adam Jones tweeted out saying that he would love to be a legend in the game. Be the second year in a row of doing that, which would be a fun name to get. And this is a kind of an unknown thing. I believe it was Ryan Ludwig in particular was like Tony Clark and Manny Ramirez, where he had a real 99 last year. And I have a feeling he was chosen as a legend, maybe because he or like his son was really interested in the game and was like, hey, it would be cool. It would be cool to get like one of those cards. I'd love to get involved in this. Yeah. Like it was a case for like someone like, cause like he's one of those names, almost like Clay Buchholz, where it's like, where is Ryan Ludwig coming from in terms of a legend pull?
But then people
like that's
like
not a name that was never too impressive in an era of like 2000s players. There were ridiculously good players, and I'm pretty sure I have a feeling it was because someone like him or someone that his family really enjoyed the game, so they made that happen. And seeing Manny Ramirez having a real 99 almost makes me think something like that happened too. Where like his son played MLB The Show. He has a real 99. Playful played with him in a video. His son likes MLB The Show. And
Manny had teased it last year.
Yeah, I think there are probably a couple more legends who had some cards like this, who had the real 99s. And my theories is that their kids play the game.
Yeah.
And they recognize that they're like, oh, these players are in the game, so they reach out and make those happen. So I will say, in terms of legend talk, sometimes you get some fun surprises like that. And at this point, I think they just got to get a couple of those big names left. Like, I think the real last one they have to get to really get a very solid pool is A-Rod, in my eyes. Like, yes, Barry Bonds would be great. I would love Barry Bonds. But A-Rod's one of those names with the quality of player he would be. He would very likely be the very best shortstop in the game at the end of the game. The mix of power, contact, speed, defense that he could get on a card. It's like a must-have card for people.
Yeah,
and would really get people into it. Yeah, and like you could get creative with A-Rod too. You could give
Yeah.
him a Yankees third baseman card. You could give him a Rangers card, a Mariners card from
Or
his younger
he
years.
has you got the 3 teams. I mean, you 2 positions: a third base and a shortstop, secondary. Like obviously,
so like
the
in
Yankees
terms of
was going to
like
be
big
primary
name
third.
names, he's like
Yeah.
number 1 for me. For a while, it
That's
was
fair.
Jeter, and there was a long time where I felt like Jeter was never going to be a legend
Yeah.
because he was an executive with the Marlins. He's never someone who has gone out of his way going for publicity or anything like that. He was just doing that. He didn't want any distractions. And then bam, MLB 23, the best cover of all time. Derek Jeter comes out, and he's the big legend of the game. And I literally never thought they would do it, and they did it.
Yeah.
So as we go on, I mean, I guess you could say never say you can never say never with some of these guys because you never know what's going to happen. It just the timing is where the never comes in.
Yeah.
Where if it's a month after the game comes out and there's a new legend coming out, you should not get your hopes up about like an Ichiro or like the biggest player that could really generate sales of being like a pre-launch legend. Like Roger Clemens would likely never be someone who would have been a mid-year legend.
No,
you know about him before
all.
the game because what it does, it generates hype for the game when you say this very good players in the game. It gets hype about the game. It gets pre-orders, gets people in the game off the rip. You can put some players in middle of the year, but most of the players are never going to be names like that because it's not going to. They're not going to generate the extra sales and revenue from people just getting into it for that reason.
And then circling back to one of the points I made earlier, it's the fact that people want to be able to play that with that card and have that progression. So obviously we're gonna get a 99 Williams, we're gonna get a 99 David Wright, Vlad. You know, everyone from the contributor card series is going to at some point. In terms of big names I'd like to see, I'd have to agree. You know, even as a Red Sox fan, I know A-Rod would be a really fun and powerful, juicy card. A very, very good third baseman. Having a diamond rank play in diamond position anywhere is ideal, but third base is huge, and for that as well. In an unbiased way, well, in a biased way, the one that I've missed out on, the one that I want back, I've been begging for so long, because it is the only card that I will ever chase a 1/1 for again, because I did it with Euclid. I saw Costco headquarters way too many times. Give me Pedroia. They got my whole there was a cover athlete captain card. I was like, we're celebrating covers.
Mm.
He
was like the missing guy. He was like the only missing one.
He was. I'm like, why? I'm like, because here's like, A-Rod did a lot more than what Pedroia could do. But again, you're comparing an apple to an orange. I will admit that right now. But you could get the same amount of program style or different overall cards with Pedroia as you could with Ichiro and A-Rod. Rookie of the Year, AL MVP, a Silver Slugger, Gold Glover All-Star, World Series, 2-time World Series champ. You could easily build off that. Like the fact that we also didn't get a World Series MVP, Mike, was a missed opportunity, but yet again, I always find hard.
Yeah, they like to be very like intentional with their cards. So like Mike Lowell, unfortunately, has been more so focused as like big Marlins legend.
Yeah,
that's a team that is very weak on Marlins, so they've been trying to capitalize him for those Marlins teams for sure. In terms of Pedroia, I remember he had a signature series card. I think it was an MLB 19, and he was a World Series award. And unfortunately, back then, that was an era where like that was like the MLB 19 was like the first year where they gave a bunch of great cards. Like MLB 18, the story of that game, where that there were only a select few really, really good cards. A lot of lower tier cards in between. You had to sell your soul, like legit sell your soul to get the best cards in the game. And 19, they heard that feedback and they're like, okay, we're gonna give a bunch of solid higher overall cards and diamonds for players, and players never got cards before. And one of those guys was Pedroia. He got a 99 overall World Series award, and I remember most people not loving him. Sadly enough, it was just a contact built card. By the time it came out, it was actually a year where contact type players played well, but it was an era where a lot of good players got solid cards, but it wasn't like after MLB 23, where a lot of very good players, even players who weren't the best, got very solid cards. That was like a different era for the game, where someone who never in the past got a very stacked card could get a very stacked card out of left field. So nowadays, someone like Dustin Pedroia would be a very solid choice, because second base is typically a weak position.
Yep.
You could build him a card that makes him a very solid card. Honestly, if he were a legend for a year, he would make a lot of sense for a collection award for like
Scann, I don't want to be spending steps over here.
a live series collection card.
Yeah,
because he's one of those players that he plays a kind of valuable position. You could give him that like similar card he had in MLB 19, but if he's in the beginning of the year, could be a very solid card for a long time. So I like the choice. I could definitely see guys like him. A lot of fans, I think, have like that one player. I was guessing when you were saying legends that you wanted. The big two Red Sox at this point for me feel like him and Nomar are like the big two Red Sox.
Everyone wants definitely that Nomar aspect would be huge. I definitely do believe that. One concept that I thought would be a great idea, because, you know, circling back to your 2K comment, is select, like, because you're not going to be able to get all 27 World Series champion Yankees, but if you could sneak in 04, 07, 13, or even 18 World Series roster with the Red Sox, there's your some of your mid 2000s left. Yankees, you can get 80s, 90s, 2000s right off. Certain teams you can cover that time period for, and people are going to get excited.
Yeah, they have a lot of names still, and like, it might be intentional that they're doing this, where they have they're like slowly picking at like these biggest names. Like they just added Ted Williams back this year after not being a legend for a couple years. They're kind of like picking and choosing when they add. One player I've almost been shocked that they never add as a legend with all the old school guys is someone like Joe DiMaggio. Like, talk about like such an all-time notable ball player who's an old school legend. He made so much sense. And then I think about it, and I'm like, you know, you look at that Yankees roster of legends they have, you know, you got Mickey Mantle locking down center field. You have Curtis Granderson who dips into that. You got current guys like Judge. You have Babe Ruth. You have Paul O'Neill now. They have so many players. So when I look at it in that perspective, it's like, I get why someone like him isn't added, because they have a big pool of legends already. And you look around at other teams, some teams don't even have players who can play catcher on their rosters and their final all-time teams. So a lot of other teams need help more than them. So I'm like, okay, I can kind of dismiss that. And this year is a big year. The Red Sox really got caught up with those legends.
About time.
Like, really got caught up, and perfect timing, because they have like a young core of prospects that are also going to get some fun cards. And some good current players as well, like players who have been with the team for a bit, like the Devers and stuff, where they'll still get cards. So I think that each year they're very intentional with who they choose. Yeah. And as much as everyone wants them to have an infinite pool of money and just add everyone, even me, I would be spoiled, and I want it. But in MLBTheShow, it's just a different type of game. It's just picking and choosing who they add, choosing it kind of within reason with whatever the teams need, and kind of just doing that, constantly reshuffling. It's kind of like the legend pool isn't always constantly growing. There's going to be like 10 to 20 like great, like pretty solid new legends. You lose 5 to 10 other ones. That
I mean, some
kind of lost their way.
Some of them I wouldn't mind losing, because another thing that I was concerned about with this year's launch is, are we going to get the same recycled legends that we've gotten the past couple of years? because like I said, like I honestly thought they've been teasing a Joe DiMaggio being added, because I don't know how many different ballparks, but there's a beat the streak with 56, so they're acknowledging the fact that Joe DiMaggio has the longest hit streak of 56.
That actually used to be, fun fact, they used to have an app. The MLB used to have an app called Beat the Streak. I don't know if it's still a thing. It was like an MLB made app or game, and the concept of it was you were supposed to guess a player each day who was going to get a hit, and your goal was to guess a right player who got a hit 56 days in a row, like the hit streak. And if you did it all, you won money. So that might be one of those things where it might have just been like a sponsor thing with MLB or something like that, where they were still promoting it because it was like maybe it was in the stadium, or they just used it as a placeholder for another ad.
So basically, that I'm gonna call it a callback then, because if that program app is not around, then it's kind of just a token of like, hey, do you guys remember when this like existed type of thing? But honestly, there are so many legends.
Yeah, it looks like it's actually still a thing from some quick research.
Is it really?
It's on the MLB app, so that is probably what it is referring to. If you see "Beat the Streak" in like a green neon looking text in any stadiums or anything like that, it's probably referring to that.
Interesting.
Or something along those lines. Yeah, so this is funny you mention that. As someone who's been a MLB The Show nerd who loves to look into everything, I used to look into everything. I was 1 year convinced they were going to add Derek Jeter because they had a pack, and the pack design was pulled from what looked like the exact card art of a Derek Jeter card. They just outlined the player model, and it was a Derek Jeter card that they based the design off of. So once I realized that, I'm like, hold up, does that mean Derek Jeter is going to be a legend? I remember doing the same thing a lot of people do nowadays, where if you listen to commentary, they'll mention some legends, some like players who aren't in the game. Like Barry Bonds gets mentioned in commentary. Other players I think get mentioned by Boog Sciambi and stuff, and people think, oh, they're coming to the game. And after year after year after year of looking into those things and realizing, you're probably just looking into this too much.
First thing I do is turn commentary and music on.
Yeah, I like the commentary. I like to leave it on sometimes, but I've started to turn it off just because I find when I'm talking in a lot of videos, it gets distracting hearing multiple voices talking at once. So I've decided to turn it off. But I will say, long story short, there are those things that we will use to try to convince yourselves that a legend is going to be added to the game. And they are never going to stop. It's always going to be that way. We're going to look into everything. Oh, is this card coming out on a day where the numbers are combined to look like Barry Bonds' jersey number? Are they coming out on this player's birthday? Oh, they're coming out on the day this player's jersey is getting retired with their team.
Yeah, like
I have been let down time and time again, so I have stopped getting my hopes up. There is such a slim chance those things happen. I still remember, I think the last time I got right about one of those things, when it wasn't even just a me thing. I think it was also KDJ in the community. When MLB 23 was coming out, and they had Jazz as the cover, it was now T as the cover, and I believe a few days after they were like, "Oh, you get your special cover announcement," and that day, I don't know if it was February 2nd or if it was also just that Derek Jeter was slated to make an appearance on one of the late night shows.
And
he tweeted out just it was a delusion-based tweet, but it was right. He was like, hey, just saying, Derek Jeter makes an appearance just a couple days later after this cover reveal. Who knows? And guess what? He actually goes on the show and reveals that he's the cover of the game with the case. And it was actually right. The day that happened, that honestly might have been the most memorable MLB The Show like day for me, in terms of like a pregame hype, because Derek Jeter was my Jason Varitek. He was
Yeah.
my guy, my favorite all-time player. The guy I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Literally ever since I got into MLB The Show, he never had a card. I needed something, and I kept on trying to convince myself for years it would happen, and it finally did. Best feeling ever.
Again, I don't care that you're a Yankees fan. You gotta get Pedroia in there. You gotta help me get Pedroia in there. You got me? I don't care.
Hey, I have no power with that. I got no power. People think I have power and stuff like this. I don't. I
could have. He can get an 85 diamond and stay that way. I will keep him in my lineup until the next game. I don't care. Like,
Hey,
I don't.
That's how it should be.
It's like I don't.
That's what I was with Jeter.
I don't have like I suck at hitting with Varitek, and that might be just I forget what his vision is. I know his vision and contact effect, this like speed swing or whatever. You know, a lot more easy to figure out than what is it? Control. You guys were on the hunt for figuring out what control meant for pitching or something like that a few years back. Where what was it? Tater Tot got elbowed or something. You guys made a video about it. Or am I?
Yeah, that's what you do with your guys. You just keep using them until literally until their next best card.
Yes. I'm really like, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking back. If you could have a World Series roster be implemented into Diamond Dynasty, they're not all going to be 90. Not all of them are going to get the 99s. Probably some of the caps are going to be like, if you have like, I'll say it when I say mine, but it like for you, what World Series roster do you want?
This is half selfishly, but also half I know people would love the players who are on this team.
Yep.
The 09 Yankees.
I think you go with that.
Look at that roster. You got Posada, Teixeira, Cano, Jeter, A-Rod, Swisher, Johnny Damon. I mean, a lot of them are actually in the game already. Hideki Matsui would be one of those niche guys that could end up being a very fun swing. Rotation-wise, you already have some. You have CC Sabathia, AJ Burnett. The rotation honestly is the most exciting part of that, honestly, and honestly same with the pen. But some fun guys you can get out of like Phil Hughes, who was like a good starter and reliever at points. Like they're notable names, but that the lineup is really where you have the players people love. Like Teixeira, switch hitting first baseman, had some great power production years where he'd have some gross cards. You have Robbie Cano, who was a favorite in Diamond Dynasty.
22
he was getting cards.
That 22 card was absolutely phenomenal.
He was gross. I miss his swing in the game. And then obviously A-Rod. And then Swisher was a legend for 1 year, a part of the Home Run Derby X cards they came out with. Yep, they had Home Run Derby X cards. That was only that 1 year. So he never got cards after that, but people even liked Swisher in that game.
He was a sneaky card. He was definitely a good bench bat. He definitely came in clutch.
Yeah, that's my definite number one. And then when you're going back to like old Yankees teams, it's not the most interesting. Like even like the 90s Yankees that had like the dynasty of players, like a lot of them are legends already. So like not much there. So I would say probably look outside of Yankees and go back to some of the like around 2000s to 2010s teams. Like I'm thinking like off the top of my head, what came to mind were one of those Cardinals teams that won a World Series.
Yeah.
Get
Adam
like
Wainwright.
Pujols, have
Wainwright,
fun. David Freese card. And then they had some other notable names throughout there. Yachty.
Yep.
Like fun players that have been in MLB The Show. And obviously, if I know for you with your Red Sox, you go for any of those Red Sox World Series years.
Okay,
you
but I want to see
any of them.
I want to see if you can guess which. I
feel like 04.
No.
Right? Not? Wow. Which one?
So 04, yes, you have good names.
No, you're probably going like, what was it? Was it 2013 that you guys won?
We won in 2013, yes. I predicted that World Series. As soon as Farrell got hired, I'm like, World Series. We're winning the World Series. Saying it now. Free trading it. New coach, who's been a coach before. We're winning the world. And I was right. So I started getting into baseball in 2008. I can tell you the two people I was introduced to at first. which I believe one of them was actually Lowell,
Mhm.
but it was Pedroia. I was like, who's this guy? Like, he was out to play. He stuck out for me. I
Yeah.
think he even hit a home run too. And I'm like, hi. And then I read up on his book later on. I've, watched. I've done the research. As much as the names, like we've brought up, Nomar, you get a nasty 2004 Pedro Martinez.
Mhm.
You get, Bronson Arroyo. You get,
Yeah.
you get, fuck, I can't even think of his name. I'm a Red Sox fan. I can't even think of his name. He's in the broadcast booth now with these. Cowboy up, got in trouble with.
I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah,
I know I'm even forgetting. I figure I should know who it is.
It's like big talker, cowboy up. Bill. I gotta look this
Bill
up.
Miller. That's a name that's
Miller.
familiar, but I
Miller
don't
sounds familiar.
Yeah, I know 04 team. I know there's a Kevin Millar was on that team, right?
Kevin
That's
Millar,
another
that's who it
throwback
was.
name. That's a fun guy. Kevin Millar is fun. I like him as
Yeah.
like a baseball personality. Was shoot.
So
Was
you got
Papelbon around in 04 or was that before his time?
that was before his time. So 06 he was a
Gotcha, I figured that
starter,
was
and
before.
then 07 he transitioned to a closer. Papelbon, my
Yeah.
all-time favorite closer. He comes in the game, I'm using him too. So that kind of gives it away a bit. You get the 04. You also get the Jesus-looking Damon. I thought I discovered his card through mini-season. I was wrong. Somebody else did. I'd go with 07. 07 is my favorite World Series roster.
Yeah, that's probably a good choice.
Because so the way I look at it, you have some sneaky names in there. You got like Lugo, you got Doug Mirabelli, but you already have like four of the people in. You've got Clay Buchholz, you've got Veritek, Ramirez, and Ortiz.
Oh, Josh Beckett.
Josh Beckett, you have
that's a big pitcher. Gagne.
He's got Gagne. Yeah, Gagne is a sneaky one. He got like a 30-second clip of him getting his ass kicked in the World Series.
You know what? I vote against this team solely because Tim Wakefield exists. Keep him away.
Keep him away.
This is actually a fun roster, guys. You have Veritek. You had Alex Cora, Mike Lowell, Julio Lugo, Poppy, Pedroia, Euclid, Coco Crisp. Oh, Coco Crisp. Jacoby Ellsbury.
So funny enough, the way that I've structured my teams in the past in terms of lineups is I followed that 2007 style lineups where you got your contact guys, then you got your first two as contact guys, 3 and 4 as your power hitters and clutch. 5 is someone can get on base, and say the other 2 are on base, but the other ones, like they just happen to come up. They can come up big, and then you have other guys that are reliable at getting on base. Like that's how I've structured my lineup, which is why I like the 2007 Red Sox roster, not just because of the fact that one, it's when I really started researching and getting into it. You had a fun, charismatic team full of rookies, vets, and legends that just knew how to play the game. Plus, if you want to draw in another international crowd, a huge international crowd, and you're bringing in Daisuke, you're bringing back some fun legends. Like honestly, in the older games, JD Drew had a really smooth. From what
did you actually know? Speaking of Matsuzaka, I think he's actually in the Pro Baseball Spirits Japanese game.
Yes, because I remember you guys
him
posting
and Koji Uehara.
Yeah,
are 2 guys that are in that game amongst a bunch of others, which is pretty neat. I'm curious. That's one pool of players that they don't get many legends in. The former Japanese players, which is interesting. I wonder how that process goes, because they could really dip into some of those guys now, like Matsuzaka, like you said. That
Yep.
would be a big one to
You know,
bring
you got
back.
Tanaka from
I
the
still
Yankees.
remember. Yep, Tanaka. Yeah, Tanaka, Koji Uehara, Matsui. Like there are a bunch of those guys. There are even like niche names like Kaz Matsui.
Yep.
There are a bunch of those guys in the 2000s that you could dip into. I'm curious to see if they ever start to add those guys in. If they brought like Ichiro, that does a lot like what Otani did with getting that player base into the game.
Base,
that would be a big one to get back for sure.
Yep.
And I would say like him, and I think the other big ones are like Matsui. Matsui is like probably the number 2 in terms of like the big Japanese guys.
I'd give that to you, absolutely.
And then after that, I mean, you probably got Daisuke for the 2000s full, because I still remember how Daisuke took over all the talk those few years. Like he was so exciting. And then Uehara was big for a few teams, the Orioles and the Red Sox, so they could use a nice little reliever out of that. And then Tanaka for the Yankees. So they're an interesting bunch of players they could tap into if they decide to actually do it, because I think that pool of players is pretty fun.
So is there you know, and in an unbiased way, you know, I agree with you on the 2009 Yankees World Series, because again, just because of the player names alone and it's cards that people want. But give me like an early 2000s Arizona Diamond.
Yeah, 01 D-backs. I think that was the year they beat the Yankees. You have.
Sorry to bring that up. No, it's fine though. I bring up the fact
it's okay.
It's
okay. I don't remember 2001. I was 3 years old. I don't remember it. It's not a memory to me.
Don't worry. I bring up the Rockies. I bring up 2007 to TJ all the time. It's always fun.
Yeah, I also was lucky to not have remembered the 04 postseason. So luckily for me, I really only like really got into it and with remembering a lot of things in baseball starting after 09.
Yeah.
Before then, I had some memories. Like I remember, what's his face? Mets left fielder robbing a home run in the postseason. I already forgot his name, but I remember like one moment like that and a couple of small things, and that's it. So all those are a blur. So 01 D-backs team was fun. Like Luis Gonzalez had a great year. I think they had some guys like Tony Womack, who were some like fun older names, and then pitching staff wise, they had Randy
Johnson, Kurt
Schilling.
Kurt Schilling being back in the game would be in it. But as a Diamondbacks especially,
they had a fun bunch of players on that team. So like them, even like the 02 Marlins.
Yep.
Where they had like Edgar Renteria, and that right there is a throwback that you'd enjoy too. He was a Noble Red Sox. I used to like his cards in like old baseball games, like playing baseball games in like 04 to like 07. I used to always like his stance and his swings on cards. So that'd be something to be cool to bring back. They have a bunch of teams like that were fun, that would be fun to just copy paste into the game. I wish they had enough of like the ability to get full throwback teams into the game, because you're able to get like some of those heavy hitters like 04, 07 Red Sox, 09 Yankees, 98 Yankees, 01 D-backs. Like if you get like a couple like all-time teams for each franchise, that would be like so fun for like not just for like Diamond Dynasty and Legend pools, but like being able to just do like franchises or like exhibition games. And like even though people can recreate their rosters and stuff and they do that, it never hits the same as having the fully scanned player model in the game with proper attributes and such.
So you mentioned cards, which reminds me. Two things. We have someone in the community that has been making their name in the MLB The Show community by printing out and sending cards to people in Ho_Ran, RAN.
Yeah, Ho_Ran,
you have also made cards yourself. Have you thought about working with him on doing something cool like that? Because, you know, like you mentioned, you know, copy pasting cards. I'm thinking computer went brain. I thought about the one card you made for yourself back in your Little League days. Milestone
That
card.
that's actually never clicked in my head, but I like the idea a lot. It would be cool. There actually, funny enough, there are actually now a few people who have been apparently like starting to print cards and like do something similar to him, which is cool. It would Now that you mention it, I like the idea like as like almost like the equivalent of like a merch thing where you have a custom card and then you could send people his way and have it made so they have like a physical tangible item. That, yeah, I never actually thought of that until you literally just popped it out. That's a neat idea.
Um, yeah, just just it's nice seeing different things with the MLB community. Do you definitely big more everyone's aware of what's going on within the community. There are some people that do take that extra step in recognizing it, but I know you're definitely one of the big names that's like, your people, you know what's going on, you know what they're doing and up to. Um, you know, so in a way, like, granted, um, I don't even know where I was going with that. I had something, I lost it. It's just you're definitely one of the more like well-rounded, well-aware from like as a community from being a community member, streamer, viewer, and player. Nope, I lost it. Nope, I'm not even trying anymore.
I appreciate the compliment.
I guess like because I don't want to like I don't even know where I was going with that, because it's like I guess I'm trying to say thanks for what you've done for the community in a way, or what you do. Yes, I said do. I know what I said.
Do.
Because I feel like you definitely give a space for like people that are that color outside of the lines in terms of not only creating like on how you create content, but how you like stream and stuff like that. I mean, sure, there's others that create like content but kind of stay on that linear plane where you're like, I'm just gonna do what I feel like I want to do, and I think that like it's great.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's a roller coaster. There are a lot of content creating and doing this. Like this is like something I've wanted to do forever. Like with ever since 2013, this was something that I thought would have been the thing I wanted to do. I just never was able to do it for God knows how long. And the one thing I think that maybe makes me stick out in comparison to a lot of other people is that with a lot of other people, they almost just stumble into becoming full-time creators. They're just fans of the game. They just stream things for the fun of it, and they just get to the position that they are, and they just kind of do it. But something like this, it's something I had basically always wanted. So for me, it's something that I work a lot behind the scenes that in ways that people don't see.
Yeah.
And over the time of like wanting to do this, I've gotten to know people of different opinions, people who come from different lanes, and I guess this almost sound like on those winding points. I don't know the finish line of it, but basically, this is something I've always wanted to do. So I recognize that for me to do this type of thing that I always want to do, it's not as simple as just me only putting in the work and doing stuff behind my end. It's a community thing. It's all about people that you meet along the way, people that you know, even the people who come along and spam hate comments in your post because they hate you, they contribute to someone like me being able to make content full time and do this thing.
Yeah.
So I just try to find the fun in all of it and enjoy it because it's something I've always wanted to do, and I try not to take any of it for granted. And there are times where I have, and you learn through doing this type of thing for a long time that motivations change and almost you evolve as a person. And I'm sure 5 years down the road, I'm going to be a completely different person than I am today because
Yeah.
that's just kind of what happens. And at the end of the day, if there's one thing I want people to know is that I do it because I love this. I'm not doing it. I don't say the things that I say to make money. I don't do anything because it pays my bills. None of it is to ever, you know, I'm not doing things to be nice to SDS and I get paid by them to grow their product of the game. I also don't hate things because I'm the worst person ever, want to see things crumble and fail. I'm just someone who loves creating content, who's wanted to do this forever, who loves MLB The Show, who has played MLB The Show since MLB '06 The Show. I even
Yep.
played MLB The Show before it was MLB The Show, when it was just called MLB, made by 989 Sports. So it all comes from a place of love, and not everyone is going to ever understand that, and that's okay. So I try to have fun and make the most of it. And if people are on board with the journey, then they are. And feel free to hop on board. I try to welcome everyone in with open arms because, I mean, I feel like it's the least I could do as someone who is literally making content on video games for a living, is get to know other people who come from different positions and people who play the games differently, or people who don't even understand what it's like creating content. So that's why it's always fun to hop on here and talk about some of the behind the scenes and kind of maybe give people a look into it, because I was that person on the outside looking in for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful to be in a position like this to talk about stuff like this and kind of almost like give people an idea of what it's like.
No, I mean it's. I mean, you coming on here, you know, it shows the type of person you are, because you could have easily gone to me and been like, "Nah, no." You could have just flat out told me no. I'd be like, "All right, understandable." You welcoming, definitely. You know, like you said, you're obviously gonna have a few haters, that, you know, haters and whatnot. No, you're definitely helpful. You're definitely, you know, communicative. Every time there's a tech issue, there's somebody tagging you somewhere, like, Scann, person's having audio issues, camera issues. You've helped me. You've made us, you know, you kind of like, oh, here's the template for the scorebook, and I'm just like, how about I pay you $20 and you make this for me? Because I was just like, you know, you definitely try and do, like I said, you do things fun, you do things different, you do things creatively. Have you do you think you'll ever do like you know, another streaming style that's become popular is a work with me stream where people can see how you edit your video? Have you thought about doing something like that, or is it one of those where it's like, nope, I just gotta focus on this because I know if I have something else going on at the same time, I'm not gonna get this?
That is a good question. I've seen some of the buds doing subathons and doing some like quick editing on their subathons because they edit their own like short form videos and stuff. And seeing how people have been interested in stuff like them doing that makes me want to dabble in it more. I would say I don't think I plan on making content about the editing process or anything like that, just because it's something I'm always constantly learning.
Yeah,
And honestly, many times it takes me a lot of energy to sit down and edit because the way I edit, it's very creatively driven.
yeah.
So it's not as much of like a muscle memory edit where I'm just going through, cutting out the blank
No,
space, and
yeah, that's
throwing
what
music on there.
yeah, I get
A
that.
lot of people do that and it works for them, but with me, I think of things very deep. Like
Yeah, you
I think
gotta. Yeah,
I think of videos in a 3-act structure. I think about some stuff that I learned where you try to change the tone every 30 seconds or so. So you edit things in a different way with the pacing of cuts or the music you choose or
yep,
things that you focus on. Like I have spreadsheets where I like not spreadsheets, but like sheets where I like take notes on a lot of videos and plan them structurally.
yep,
So in many cases, it would become a lot to do that all on a stream or in
yeah,
content, and it would be tough for me to focus. But I could totally see during like the slower time of the year when the off season comes
yep.
around, and I have some ideas where I don't know, maybe I do like a marathon type stream where I stay live for a certain amount of time and I have to edit on stream. Then I'll do stuff like that. But I'll probably mostly be sticking to places like this where I could just kind of talk about those things and kind of like quickly explain or almost like tease some of the things that I do behind the scenes because it's a lot of work for me to sit down and edit. Most
Yeah.
days I can't even sit down and edit. I've been recently learning about how like what it takes to get the most out of you creatively. And like, it's tough to be creative when you're on a bad sleep schedule or when you have different things distracting you.
Yep.
It's tough to be creative. Your creative tank is almost like its own thing. You have to keep fueled by following a good daily routine and forcing yourself to not get distracted by things and forcing yourself to think of things. Like you have to do so many calculated things just to keep going creatively. So it's tough to throw streaming into it because it's a distraction. It's
Yeah.
something that and especially with how I stream, I try
Yeah,
to focus on reading chats and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
If I were to do something like that, I'd have to find a way to do it in a mode where I could just focus fully on it and people would just watch me work, which might be interesting. Might be a fun thing to try.
Yeah,
I have never
just
counted
like,
anything out idea wise.
like, you mentioned, the marathon standpoint, and I kind of narrow it down in a way. I'm kind of going for more of like you already got like the game you already got your game plan set up, so you know what you're gonna do. Just so that way you can see, just so that way people know that's like, hey, I'm here. I know I'm not people are seeing that you're putting out like videos and stuff, but to give them that taste of like just a stream where you just relax, so that way you already know what you have to do. Hopefully, you can communicate with chat and whatnot at the same time, but just so that way they see this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, how it's getting done, so that way you avoid that burnout, so that way you can hopefully provide the videos that your community or future members of the community are looking to see.
Yeah, I've dabbled with this, and I don't think I'm in a position to do it yet, just with getting into the motions. But I've done things like had behind the scenes where people are members of something. They get behind the scenes script, they get my scripts if I have scripted content, or they get images of what my text formatting is for planning videos, so they could see some of the behind the scenes. And maybe stuff like that would include me sitting down and talking through what I'm doing editing wise, where I just sit down, I make a pre-recorded video of me working through one of my videos that I came out with, and people could see the behind the scenes of what's going through my brain. That would probably be the best medium for me to do something like that, like a behind the scenes exclusive type thing. But I have seen people doing, like you said, doing the streams where they just go live and they just do their editing and stuff, and it's cool to see what goes through their heads. I mean, my dude Swan did his subathon, and even though I edit all the time, he had phases on his subathon where he would hop on and just edit some short form videos and talk YouTube shop. And if any of you get to know me personally, when I get the opportunity to talk shop on YouTube, I am sprinting to the chat. I run right to it. Even if it's not the biggest thing on YouTube, I'll talk about, oh, this would be a fun thumbnail. Oh, you should title it this. This would be a great type of edit.
The creative brain starts flowing, and it's not even your project.
It does. It's something that it comes and goes. When I see something that's really compelling, it pulls me in, and that's why it's tough to stream almost, because I never have a set schedule. You might think where it's every day I wake up and I sit down for 4 hours, edit, and then I do this, and then I do this. My daily schedule is about as chaotic as you would probably expect. Today, I literally woke up and I was like, okay, I'm going to get up, and when I'm in the mode, I'm going to sit here and brainstorm ideas for a couple hours. And I brainstormed a couple ideas for a video I'm planning and what type of path I'm going to go down with it. I did some research on other videos, and then that was the case for a couple hours. And then after that, I'm like, there goes my creative capacity for a bit. Didn't get the best sleep last night. I've run out of the tank. Let's take a couple hour nap so I could get back into the flow of things again.
Yep.
Then took my nap, woke up, worked a little bit more at that, and then had this. And after this, my creative capacity is probably done for today. So I'm just talking to dudes, relaxing for the end of the night, getting my mind off the content stuff, because that's another thing I've been working on, trying to balance not being in content mode 24/7. So just trying to get my mind off that for the night. Then the next day starts, and tomorrow maybe I start actually recording or planning that video. Maybe because the Weekend Classic comes out, I'm like, I'm gonna play some of the Weekend Classic instead. So like basically it's all over the place. It's a chaotic mess. There's no tracking it.
Yeah.
So it's tough to throw things in because I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't even know when I'm gonna sit down and edit another video. So it's kind of chaotic, but that's
what are you gonna start on tomorrow? Weekend Classic, more content coming out because we're talking about this on May 8th. Tomorrow's May 9th. Third inning programs getting dropped. Another Spotlight series, even though I'm not even close to getting Wyatt Langford. But it's again it's that trying to figure out that balance, which is something that recently I have come to terms that you need to start doing and learning the things that you say you don't like learning and you don't like doing, or else you're just going to be stuck in the sandpit with your ideas.
Absolutely. The way I used to look at it was I used to hate editing in the beginning.
Because I'm like, I don't know if I'm
hated
cutting
it
too much.
Because it was all mechanical. It's just sitting down, cutting out silent points, just taking a 2-hour recording and turning it into something that can be uploaded. And then that part I still don't enjoy, the whole filtering through your footage and getting it all organized. But it's a completely different game for me now because I don't look at editing as just cutting up footage and throwing music and stuff on it. The way I edit, there's a lot more creativity there. So I do things in a very unorthodox way sometimes where, like, for example, the extreme video I made last year is the best example of this, where I'll do those things. I'll have like an 8-hour recording and then I'll go through and I'll organize, okay, what makes sense to be here to fit like a first act of the video? What would make sense to be here so we ascend in the stakes and make people want to keep watching for the length of the video? What do I do with this cut? Do I slowly cut and highlight my reactions to things? Do I montage things of me attempting moments and failing over and over again? Do I use this music to fit this tone that's going on right now? Do I highlight these things? So when those things come into play and I'm basically creating a story, then that's when it becomes fun because it's creative. There's something there that I'm putting together. But the mechanical side of just going through and cutting and all that is just not the most fun. So I find for a lot of people that they can find fun in the things that they don't enjoy because there are ways to push yourself in a way in that skill that you may not have ever thought. Like for me, that could be like editing and getting more to editing. Another thing I've liked to mess around with that a lot of people hate is setting up their OBS with streams. They hate setting up their scenes and getting things organized and
I just put my stuff in the folders finally.
Yeah, people don't like that part of streaming because they don't want to bother learning the program or what you can do with the program. They just set it up. They have a stream. But while I get a lot of fun in learning everything you can do with the program, and then I mess around and stay up till 5 a.m. and make a score bug overlay for my stream by staying up all night because the idea is so compelling to me and I find out I can do it. I'm like, I gotta do it. And I do it, and it's the most rewarding thing because you find out, when you can be creative, it can be fun. So I guess my recommendation to anyone is like, push yourself to learn those things and not just to learn the skills to be more efficient and to learn to get through things faster, but like push yourself creatively. Like try pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and not just the process, but like in the ideas that you do. Like push yourself in how you go through and like work on things. Like try getting creative in those processes that you don't like and try to pull inspiration from other things that you like. Like, for example, one thing that stuck with me, here's like a core thing that editing wise that has stuck with me for a long time as a creator. I always enjoyed when I would watch a Kevin GOD video back in the day. He would play ranked, and so he still does it to this day, where he'll have a moment where something stupid happens in the game and he'll just cut the music. Music goes silent, and it's him just staring there like, what just happened? And it's like this extended period of silence. And it was so funny to me. It just kind of subliminally became a part of my editing where something absurd will happen. I'll cut the music and I'm like, what just happened? And it's something that like I got from watching someone else. That's a fun thing that I put together. It's like you make a moment funny through good editing. And it's not even much good editing. You're really just letting a moment play out, but it's a good edit. Because a lot of people just get into cutting out all the silence. When you cut out all the silence, you don't have that much there. It's all just a yap session. So you want like there's creativity even in the small things. And a lot of times that's all it takes to make things fun for you. So don't be afraid to not just focus on efficiency and getting things done fast to make it better.
Yeah.
Try to get creative and like force yourself to get creative. Take things that you know you enjoy, little snippets of things that you just enjoy that other creators do, and give them a go yourself. And I find that makes the processes way more fun when you can get creative with them. And that's what keeps me going. Whenever I'm like creatively simulated that way, that's what gets me going, and that's what keeps anyone going. If you're actually working on all the steps of it.
Yeah.
And I find people find ways to outlet that in different ways. Even the people who don't even edit their own videos, I think they start to push themselves by getting creative with ideas or creative with stream things. So maybe they get creative in the types of streams that they run or the types of collaborations that they do. Always push yourself creatively out of your comfort zone, because you never know where it's going to take you and what things you end up enjoying. So it's good to look at things not just as a process and getting better at the process. Just get creative at something that is a part of that process that could not only improve the product of your video, but could just be fun to create.
Yeah, because it's God, I needed this yap set like a few weeks ago. Because holy fuck, my vote shit all. You know, you mentioned the reaction styles of how people do it. I kind of channeled, like, I can't find the video because I needed to add like stream markers into my OBS system, so that way I can go, okay, clip that. Okay, why did I mark this? I go back, I see the area of the video, I'm like, okay, that's why. So I had a Crawdaddy. And Crawdaddy is super creative with his green screen, because it was one of umpire. When is it ever not an umpire? Literally, his back's turned, and he's just like, it's a foul ball. And I'm like, the ball hasn't even landed yet. It almost hit you. How can you sit here and tell me that it's fair or foul? You're back, like, you could have died.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need that. I'm ready to run through a fucking wall now. Thanks, Scann.
That's what it's about.
All right, so think it's a good time. You and I could probably go 12 hours of this. But I think we're at a spot where we could kind of wrap things up. So the final question out of the 5. So the 6th question out of the 6 questions that I had, the last one is what can we expect from you, whether it's long term or short?
Good question. Honestly, I don't want to say more of the same, because a lot of it may not seem like it with the type of videos I put out to many people, but I'm always constantly evolving things behind the scenes in the ways that I put together videos and content, and I'm always like adjusting with how much I balance creating different types of content. So never expect the same out of me ever. That feels like something that's always constantly changing. But I mean, I'm just gonna keep if there's anything to expect out of me in the short term or long term, just keep on expecting, hopefully, fun and unique YouTube videos out of me. Whether that continues to be MLB The Show forever, or expands into other baseball games or other games in the future. No, those goals are constantly evolving. Just if there's anything that I know is a fact, is that I'm gonna keep on making YouTube videos the way that I have been for the last 2 years, and it's gonna As of right now, there's no reason that's ever gonna stop because like we've been talking about, I love it to death,
Yeah.
and we're gonna keep going. So expect to see more of my face on YouTube as we keep going here.
Well, there you have it, folks. From the lips of Scann the man, the analytics man, first guest of the broadcast booth. I definitely had a great time with this. Scann, again, I really appreciate you coming on, being able to work this out. Not semi last minute, but definitely kind of an out of the blue. No, I just thank you for coming on. I hope everybody enjoyed. Definitely gonna be some snippets that I'll pull out here and there for social media, obviously. Possibly a better thumbnail. No things. So I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope everybody has a good night, and I don't know about Scann, but I will definitely be back live tomorrow for the content drop once I get home, situation settled. But yeah, until then, everybody have a good night.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.